Story 1. The Loop on Interstate 80. Marcus Chen had been driving the I-80 corridor between Sacramento and Reno for 12 years. He knew every truck stop, every grade, every mile marker like the back of his weathered hands. On November 3, 2019, at 2:47 a.m., he was hauling a load of electronics through the Nevada stretch when his reality began to unravel in ways that still make his hands shake when he grips a steering wheel. The night was clear, temperature sitting at a comfortable 52 degrees. Marcus had just passed Truckee, making good time, his CB radio crackling with the occasional chatter from other drivers pushing through the graveyard shift. He had 340 miles of fuel in his tank, a fresh cup of truck stop coffee in his holder, and a delivery window he was confident he'd make with 3 hours to spare. Everything was routine. Everything was normal. Then he saw the mile marker. Mile 205. He noted it without thinking, the way drivers do, keeping mental track of progress. His GPS showed him right on course, estimated arrival time holding steady at 6:15 a.m. He turned up his radio slightly, some classic rock station out of Reno, and settled in for the long straight stretch through the high desert. 15 minutes later, he passed mile marker 205 again. Marcus blinked, certain he'd misread it in the darkness. But no, there it was, clearly illuminated in his headlights, mile 205. He checked his odometer, his GPS. The GPS still showed him progressing forward, the little blue dot moving steadily along I-80 toward Reno. The odometer had ticked up 17 miles since he'd first passed that marker, but there it was again, mile 205. He grabbed his CB. This is westbound Chen on I-80. Anybody else seeing anything weird with the mile markers out here? Come back. Static, then, what kind of weird driver? This is gonna sound strange, but I swear I just passed the same marker twice. Mile 205. A long pause. You sure you didn't miss your exit loop back somehow? Marcus looked at his GPS again. No exits, no turns, just straight I-80 exactly as he'd driven it hundreds of times. Negative, I've been straight on 80 the whole time. Might want to pull over, check your gauges. Could be running tired. Marcus wasn't tired. He de-slept 7 solid hours at the truck stop in Sacramento, had a good meal, felt sharp and alert. But he didn't argue. 10-4, I'll keep an eye on it. He drove on. The road was empty, which wasn't unusual for this hour. The darkness pressed in from both sides, the desert scrub barely visible beyond his headlight range. His radio played. His GPS showed steady progress. 23 minutes passed. Mile marker 205. This time Marcus felt ice slide down his spine. He slammed on his brakes, the truck shuddering to a stop on the shoulder. He sat there, engine idling, staring at that goddamn marker. He checked everything. Odometer 41 miles since Truckee. GPS showing him at mile 246, almost to Fernley. But that marker, clear as day in his mirrors, read 205. He pulled out his phone. No signal. Not unusual in this stretch, but the timing felt wrong. He tried his CB again. This is westbound Chen. I've got a serious problem here. Can anybody hear me? Come back. Nothing, not even static. The CB was on, lights glowing, but dead silent. Marcus sat there for 10 minutes trying to rationalize it. Equipment malfunction, GPS error. Maybe he was tired and disoriented. Maybe he'd somehow gotten turned around. But he knew this road. He knew it like he knew his own apartment. There was no way to get turned around on this stretch. It was straight as an arrow for 60 miles. He put the truck in gear and continued. What else could he do? Turn around? Go where? He was locked into the highway, into forward motion. That's what truckers do. They drive forward. Mile marker 205 appeared again after 18 minutes, then again after 22 minutes, then again after 14 minutes. Marcus started counting them. Each time he passed that marker, he noted the time, the odometer reading, everything. His logs showed him driving. His GPS showed him progressing. But mile marker 205 kept appearing like a recurring nightmare, regular as a heartbeat but never at the same interval. The 7th time he passed it, he noticed something else. His fuel gauge hadn't moved. He'd been driving for over 2 hours since trucky, heavy rig, moderate speed, and his fuel gauge showed exactly what it had shown when he first saw that marker. 340 miles of range. Eighth time he saw another truck. It was ahead of him, maybe half a mile, taillights glowing red in the darkness. Relief flooded through Marcus. He wasn't alone. Whatever was happening, someone else was on this road. He accelerated, closing the distance. As he got closer, he could make out the details. A Peterbilt similar to his own, hauling a standard box trailer, Nevada plates. He tried the CB again. This is westbound Chen to the Peterbilt ahead, mile 205 area, you copy. The truck ahead didn't respond. Marcus pulled closer, closer. He could see the ICC bar on the trailer now, see the mud flaps, see the license plate number. He was maybe 100 feet behind, matching speed. The truck ahead passed mile marker 205. Marcus followed. When he looked in his mirror, the Peterbilt was behind him, not pulling over, not turning around. Impossibly, instantly behind him, maintaining the exact same speed, the exact same distance. Marcus looked forward. Empty road. He looked in his mirror. The Peterbilt was there following him. He accelerated. The truck behind accelerated, maintaining distance. He slowed. It slowed. He tried the CB again, voice cracking. Peterbilt behind me, identify yourself, come back. Nothing. He passed mile marker 205 again, the 9th time. When he checked his mirror, there were 2 trucks behind him now. Both Peterbilts, both identical, both maintaining exactly the same distance. Marcus felt his chest tighten. This wasn't equipment failure. This wasn't exhaustion. This was something else, something wrong with reality itself. He gripped the wheel, knuckles white, and kept driving because stopping felt worse. The road ahead was empty. The road behind was filling up with impossible copies of that same truck. 10th time passed mile marker 205, 4 trucks behind him. 11th time, 8 trucks. 12th time, 16 trucks arrayed in perfect formation, all maintaining exact distance, none making a sound on his CB, none of them possible. The desert on either side of the road had changed too. It was darker now, the scrub and rock formations invisible, replaced with absolute blackness that his headlights couldn't penetrate. It was as if the road existed in a void, a ribbon of pavement and painted lines suspended in nothing, going nowhere, returning to the same point over and over. Marcus was crying now. He didn't care. He tried his phone again. Dead. GPS was glitching, showing him in multiple locations simultaneously, the blue dot multiplying, spreading across the map like a virus. His odometer spun backwards, then forwards, then froze at exactly 205 miles. 13th time past the marker, 32 trucks behind him. He could see them stretching back in his mirrors, their headlights creating a tunnel of light that receded into the void. He screamed into the CB, "Somebody help me, I'm stuck in a loop on I-80, can anybody hear me, please?" A voice came through, his own voice, saying the exact same words with the same terror, the same breaking point. Then another voice, still his, screaming the same plea. Then another. Then dozens, hundreds, all of his voice, all of him, screaming from every truck behind him. Marcus made a decision. On the 14th approach to mile marker 205, he cranked the wheel hard right and drove off the highway. The truck crashed through the guardrail, which disintegrated like paper. He expected to roll, to crash down an embankment, to die probably. Instead, the truck drove onto smooth pavement. Another road perpendicular to I-80 that hadn't been there. That couldn't have been there. The trucks behind him didn't follow. They continued forward on I-80, their lights disappearing. Marcus sat there, engine still running on this impossible road. His GPS flickered once and showed him on State Route 447, 60 miles north of his actual position. Then it corrected, and he was back on I-80, approaching Fernley as if he'd never stopped, never looped, never seen anything wrong. His CB crackled to life. "Westbound Chen, you still out there? You never answered about those weird markers." Marcus grabbed the mic, hands shaking so badly he could barely press the button. "Yeah, I'm here. I'm okay. It was nothing, equipment glitch." 10-4, drive safe out there. Marcus drove into Fernley in silence. His GPS showed the correct time, 5:43 a.m. He'd somehow made up the time despite everything, or he'd never lost it. He didn't know anymore. He delivered his load, fueled up, and drove back to Sacramento using I-50, I-5, anything but I-80. He still drives truck, has to make a living, but he's never driven through that stretch of I-80 at night again. Sometimes, when he's on other highways, other routes, he sees mile markers that feel too familiar that he swears he's passed before in the same trip. When that happens, he pulls over, sleeps for a few hours even if he doesn't need to, and waits for daylight. Last month, he met another driver at a truck stop in Elko. They got to talking, swapping stories. The other driver mentioned something strange that had happened to him 2 years ago on I-80 between Truckee and Reno. Something about getting stuck passing the same mile marker over and over. Marcus didn't ask for details. He paid for his coffee, went to his truck, and left. Some things are better left alone, better left unconfirmed. Because if it happened to someone else, that means it's still there. The loop is still there, waiting in the darkness of the Nevada desert on America's deadliest highways, ready to trap another driver in an endless repetition of the same impossible mile. He doesn't know if he escaped or if he's still there, still passing mile marker 205, still seeing those trucks multiply behind him. Maybe this is the loop. Maybe he never left. Maybe every highway he drives now is just another iteration of that same stretch of I-80, and he'll never know the difference until he passes that marker again. Sometimes, in his mirror, he swears he sees a Peterbilt behind him that wasn't there a moment before. He doesn't look back anymore. Story 2. The Alligator Alley broadcast. Denise Kowalski had been hauling freight across Florida for 8 years. And Alligator Alley, the stretch of I-75 cutting through the Everglades between Naples and Fort Lauderdale, was one of her regular routes. On August 17, 2021, she picked up a load of restaurant equipment in Naples with a delivery window in Miami for 6:00 a.m. the next morning. She left at 11:30 p.m., planning to make the run through the night when traffic was light and temperatures were cooler. The first 30 miles were unremarkable. The alley stretched out before her, straight and dark, the sawgrass marshland pressing close on both sides. Denise had her windows cracked, the humid night air mixing with her AC, and her radio tuned to a classic country station. Her CB was on, volume low, occasionally crackling with distant trucker chatter. She made this run 200 times at least. She knew every rest area, every mile marker, every point where her phone signal would drop as she passed through the most remote section of the Everglades. At mile marker 63, her radio died mid-song. Not static, not a station change, just instant silence. She reached for the dial, turned it off and back on. Nothing. She tried scanning for stations. The scanner ran through the entire FM band without finding a single signal, then the AM band with the same result. In South Florida, one of the most densely populated regions in the country, she couldn't find a single radio station. "That's weird," she muttered and turned to her CB. She keyed the mic. "This is eastbound Denise on Alligator Alley. Anybody out there? My radio just died, wondering if anybody else is having signal problems. Come back." Silence. Then a voice, male, calm but with an edge of strain. "Thank God, yes, I'm having the same problem. Everything's dead except the CB." Denise felt relieved. Technical problems she could handle, and if it was affecting other drivers, it was probably something environmental, maybe a storm system interfering with broadcasts even though the sky was clear. "You eastbound or westbound driver?" "Eastbound. Just past marker 58, I think. Hard to see them. It's getting darker out here." Denise frowned. She was at marker 63. This driver was 5 miles behind her. She looked in her mirrors. Nothing but darkness, no headlights visible. How far back are you? I don't see your lights. A pause. I can't see anybody either. Road's completely empty. How long you been on the alley? About 40 minutes. You. Another pause, longer this time. 3 hours. Denise's hands tightened on the wheel. 3 hours. Driver, the alley's only 80 miles end to end. At highway speeds, that's... I know how long it should take, the voice interrupted, sharp now. I know what it should be, but I've been driving for 3 hours and I'm still out here. The markers, they're not making sense. I passed marker 49 4 times. Denise's relief evaporated, replaced by cold unease. She checked her own position. Mile marker 65 coming up in her headlights. She watched her odometer, watched the marker pass, looked ahead for marker 66. Mile marker 65 appeared in her headlights again. "Oh no," she whispered. "You see it too." The voice on the CB was tight with barely controlled panic. "You're starting to loop, aren't you?" Denise didn't answer. She was counting now, watching. Mile marker 65, then 66, then 65 again. No, wait, 67, then 65. The markers were appearing in random order, impossible sequences. She was moving forward. She could feel the truck's momentum, see the road disappearing under her wheels, but the markers made no sense. 65, 68, 65, 61, 65. "How long until it gets worse?" she asked into the CB, voice steady despite the fear crawling up her spine. "The markers are just the start," the voice replied. "After a while you'll start hearing the other broadcast." "What other broadcast?" Static answered her, rolling and crackling through the CB speaker. Then underneath it she heard something else. A voice, faint but distinct, speaking in measured, calm tones. "Highway conditions deteriorating at mile markers 63 through 72. Emergency services are unable to access the affected area due to environmental anomalies. If you are receiving this broadcast, do not attempt to exit your vehicle. Do not stop. Continue driving until..." The signal faded into static, then silence. "Did you hear that?" Denise asked. "I've been hearing it for 2 hours, the male driver responded. "It loops every 17 minutes. Sometimes it's clearer. Sometimes you can hear more of it." Denise's GPS was glitching now, showing her position jumping around the map, sometimes on I-75, sometimes in the middle of the Everglades, several miles from any road, sometimes not showing at all. Her phone had no signal. The clock on her dashboard read 12:43 a.m., which couldn't be right. She'd only been driving for little over an hour. She passed a rest area that shouldn't exist. It appeared on her right, fully lit, with several trucks parked in the lot. She could see the building, see the fuel pumps, see people walking around. But she'd driven this route hundreds of times, and there was no rest area at mile marker 65. The only facilities on Alligator Alley were at markers 49 and 81. "There's a rest stop here," she said into the CB. "Do you see it?" "Don't stop there." The voice was urgent now, almost shouting. "Whatever you do, don't stop." "I stopped. That's when things got really wrong." "What do you mean you stopped? What happened?" "The people there, they're not there wrong. I was only there for 5 minutes just to use the restroom, and when I came out my truck had been sitting there for 6 days. The date on my phone had changed. 6 days gone, but I remembered 5 minutes. And the people, they don't have faces right. Like their features move when you're not looking directly at them." Denise accelerated past the rest area. In her mirror, she saw it recede into the darkness. Then, impossibly, it appeared ahead of her again. Same lights, same trucks, same layout, a perfect duplicate. The broadcast came through again, clearer this time. "Phenomenon is expanding. Current affected area encompasses 13 miles of I-75. Temporal distortions reported. Drivers experiencing loop events should maintain speed and direction. Previous attempts to exit the highway have resulted in complications. Emergency responders have encountered significant casualties. Unknown cause." The signal degraded into static again. Denise's chest felt tight. Previous attempts to exit, casualties. What the hell is happening out here? "I don't know," the male driver said, "but there's more of us. Listen." Denise turned up her CB. Underneath the static, she could hear other voices now. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all talking over each other, all asking the same questions. How long have you been here? Does anybody know what's happening? I've been driving for days. The markers won't stop. I can't find the end. How many? Denise whispered. I don't know. I've counted at least 40 distinct voices. Some of them have been here longer than others. One guy said he entered the alley in 2019, but that's impossible. That's insane. Denise checked her fuel gauge, 3/4 full, plenty to make it to Miami if she could just get through this, whatever this was. But the gauge needle was trembling, flickering. As she watched, it jumped to full, then to empty, then back to 3/4. The road ahead began to change. The pavement developed a shimmer like heat haze, except it was midnight and cool. The painted lines started to glow faintly, a sick greenish phosphorescence that hadn't been there before. The sawgrass on either side of the highway was moving wrong, swaying in patterns that didn't match any wind, rippling in geometric sequences. Mile marker 65 appeared again. Then directly next to it, another mile marker 65. Then another. A whole row of them stretching off into the marsh, all reading 65, all identical, receding into the darkness like fence posts. I'm seeing multiple markers, Denise said into the CB, trying to keep her voice from shaking. Stage 3, a new voice responded, female, older. That's stage 3. After this comes the convergence. Who is this? How long have you been here? 2 months, maybe. Time doesn't work right. I've been driving 2 months on a highway that shouldn't take more than 90 minutes to cross. My truck still has fuel. I still have food in my cab. Nothing runs out, but nothing ends either. Denise felt tears starting. That's not possible. You'd have been found. Search and rescue. There is no rescue, the woman said flatly. We're not missing. Check your GPS. Denise looked. Her GPS showed her exactly on I-75 eastbound, right where she should be. To anyone tracking her vehicle, she was making normal progress across the alley. Nothing was wrong. Nothing was abnormal. How? Denise asked. We're still there, the woman explained. And we're here both at the same time. I've seen helicopters fly over. I've flashed my lights, blown my horn. They don't see us, or they see something else. We're in the same space, but not the same, I don't know the word. Not the same reality, maybe. The broadcast returned, much clearer now, and Denise could hear the strain in the announcer's voice. FDOT and emergency services have designated mile markers 60 through 70 as a no-stop zone effective immediately. Monitoring stations have detected severe temporal displacement events. 17 vehicles have disappeared from satellite tracking while remaining visible on GPS. Drivers approaching this area are advised to maintain speed above 65 miles per hour and do not acknowledge any roadside emergency signals or distress situations. The hitchhikers are not real. The accidents are not real. The people requesting assistance are not. Static swallowed the rest. The hitchhikers. Denise looked ahead. In the glow of her headlights, she saw a figure on the shoulder. A man waving his arms, clearly in distress. As she got closer, she could see his face, see his mouth moving, see him pointing at a car pulled over behind him with its hazard lights on. Every instinct told her to stop. Someone needed help, but she heard the broadcast, heard the warning. She kept driving, maintaining speed. As she passed the man, he turned to look at her, and his face was wrong. Not disfigured, not monstrous, just wrong in a way she couldn't articulate. His features were too symmetrical, too perfect, like a computer rendering of a human face that hadn't quite captured what made a face real. In her mirror, she saw him standing there, still waving. Then he was on the other side of the highway ahead of her, the same man, the same pose, the same wrong face. She passed him again. He appeared again and again and again, multiplying like reflections in opposing mirrors, an infinite series of identical figures standing along the highway. Don't look at them too long, a male voice warned on the CB, different from the first driver. That's how they get in. Once you really see them, once you understand what they are, that's when you can't leave anymore. What are they? Denise asked, but she kept her eyes forward, refusing to look at the multiplying figures. We don't know. Some kind of lure, maybe. They show you what you expect to see, what would make you stop. I've seen accidents, cars on fire, children standing alone. None of it's real. But if you stop, you stay. Denise drove faster. The speed limit on the alley was 70, but she pushed it to 80, then 85. The hitchhikers became a blur. The mile markers strobed past in nonsense sequences. Her truck was shaking, engine roaring, but she didn't slow down. And then suddenly it was over. Mile marker 73 appeared, then 74, then 75, in sequence, normal sequence. The sawgrass stopped its geometric swaying. The pavement lost its shimmer. Her radio crackled to life, blaring a pop song from a Miami station. The CB went silent. "Hello," Denise called into it. "Anybody there? Come back." Nothing, no static, no voices, just the normal quiet hum of an open channel. She looked at her dashboard clock, 1:17 a.m. According to her GPS, she was at mile marker 76, exactly where she should be for her elapsed driving time. Her fuel gauge showed 3/4 full. Everything was normal. She drove the remaining distance to Fort Lauderdale in shocked silence, made her delivery in Miami on time, filed her logs, which showed a routine, unremarkable trip across the alley. No gaps, no anomalies, no lost time. For 3 days, she told herself it had been exhaustion, maybe carbon monoxide from a leak in her cab, maybe a hallucination brought on by medication interaction. Something rational, something explainable. Then she drove the alley again. Westbound this time, mid-afternoon, bright sun, heavy traffic. At mile marker 65, her radio died mid-song. Her CB crackled to life. A voice, male, desperate. "Thank God, is somebody there? I've been stuck out here for..." Denise turned off her CB, turned off her radio. Drove in silence, staring straight ahead, maintaining exactly 70 miles per hour, not stopping, not looking at the mile markers, not acknowledging the figures she could see in her peripheral vision standing along the shoulder. She made it through. That time. But she knows it's still there. Whatever anomaly exists in that 13-mile stretch of the Everglades, it's persistent. It's growing. The first driver said he'd been there for 3 hours. The woman said 2 months. How long before someone gets stuck permanently? How long before that section of highway becomes completely impassable, a permanent loop that swallows drivers and keeps them circling forever through its dark geometry? Denise still drives truck. She still takes Florida routes, but she doesn't drive the alley at night anymore. She plans her routes to cross it during the day in heavy traffic, surrounded by other vehicles. Safety in numbers, she tells herself. As if the presence of other drivers offers any protection against something that exists outside normal time and space. Last month, FDOT announced they'd be resurfacing a 13-mile stretch of I-75 between Naples and Fort Lauderdale, mile markers 60 through 73. The project has been delayed 3 times. Workers report equipment failures, time discrepancies in their shifts, and several have quit, claiming the road doesn't feel right. The work hasn't started yet. Probably never will. Some things, once they're broken, can't be fixed. And somewhere on that stretch of highway in the darkness between mile markers, dozens of drivers are still circling, still broadcasting, still hoping someone will hear them and understand how to get them out. Denise hears them sometimes, even when her CB is off. Faint voices asking for help, asking how long they've been there, asking if anyone knows the way out. She doesn't answer. There's no point. Once you're in the loop, there's no one on the outside who can pull you free. You can only hope you make it through before it decides to keep you. Story 3. The Phantom Way Station. Trevor Blackwood was hauling timber through Oregon, running the stretch of Highway 97 between Bend and Klamath Falls on a cold October night in 2020. He'd been driving for 19 years, the last 11 of them through the Pacific Northwest, and he knew every way station, every inspection point, every regulation checkpoint on his regular routes, which is why he was confused when he saw the signs. Way station open, all trucks must exit 2 miles. Trevor frowned. There was no way station on this stretch of 97. The nearest one was 40 miles south, just before the California border. He'd driven this route 3 times a month for years, but there was the sign, standard ODOT blue and white, clear as day in his headlights. He checked his GPS. It showed the highway continuing straight with no marked facilities. He grabbed his CB. Southbound Blackwood on 97, anybody know about a way station north of Klamath? I'm seeing signs, but it's not on my maps. A moment of static, then a response. Negative, Blackwood. No way station up there. Might be new construction, maybe. Or maybe signs for one they're planning. Trevor didn't think so. The signs were too official, too permanent. 1 mile marker appeared. Way station open, all trucks must exit 1 mile. He could see the exit now, a proper off-ramp with reflectors and painted lines. At the end of the ramp there were buildings, lights, and the distinctive covered scale area that marked every way station in Oregon. It looked completely legitimate. It looked like it had been there for decades. But it hadn't been there last week when he'd run this same route. Trevor made a decision. He was legal, his logs were clean, his load was properly secured and within weight limits. If this was some new facility, better to pull in and get checked than risk a citation for bypassing a way station. He took the exit. The ramp curved gently down to a small complex of buildings. There were overhead lights, though they had an odd yellowish quality that was different from the bright LEDs most modern facilities used. A large sign read, Oregon Way Station 73, all commercial vehicles report to scale. Station 73. Trevor had never heard of a Station 73. Oregon had maybe 30 permanent way stations statewide, and they weren't numbered like this. He pulled onto the scale. The building ahead had large windows, and through them he could see figures moving around, people in what looked like uniforms. Everything appeared normal. He waited for the light signal to proceed or the instruction to pull forward. Nothing happened. No lights, no speaker crackle, no signal of any kind. Trevor waited 2 minutes, then 3. He reached for his CB to ask if anybody else was experiencing this, then realized his CB was dead. Not just quiet, completely dead. No lights, no power. He tried his radio, dead. His phone showed no signal. The driver's side door of the scale building opened. A man walked out wearing what looked like an Oregon uniform, dark pants and a light blue shirt. He was carrying a clipboard. He walked toward Trevor's truck with a calm, purposeful stride. Trevor rolled down his window. The October air was cold, carrying the scent of pine and diesel. The man reached his door and looked up at him with a professionally neutral expression. "Good evening, sir. Please provide your manifest, logbook, and vehicle registration." Trevor handed down the documents. "Is this a new station? I don't remember seeing it last week." The inspector didn't answer, just studied the papers with careful attention. His movements were precise, mechanical almost. After a long moment, he looked back up at Trevor. "Your load weight is 78,420 pounds. Your gross vehicle weight is 79,100 pounds. This exceeds the rated capacity for this vehicle configuration on secondary highways." Trevor blinked. "What? No, I'm at 73,000. My load was weighed at the mill. I'm well under limit." "The scale indicates otherwise. I'll need you to pull forward into the inspection bay for a level 1 examination." Something was wrong. Trevor could feel it in his gut, that driver's instinct that keeps you alive on the road. "Can I see the scale readout? I have a right to verify the weight." The inspector's expression didn't change. "Pull forward into the inspection bay. Now." Trevor looked past the man at the inspection building. Through the windows, he could see the other figures more clearly now. They were all wearing the same uniform, all moving in the same slow, deliberate way. None of them were looking at computers or papers. They were just standing there, moving occasionally, like actors on a stage miming the actions of real workers. "I want to speak to your supervisor," Trevor said. "Pull forward into the inspection bay. I'm not moving until I verify that weight. My load is legal and I know my rights as a commercial driver." The inspector stared up at him. For the first time, his expression changed, but not in a way that made Trevor feel better. The man smiled, a slow spread of lips that didn't reach his eyes. "You don't have to move the truck, sir. You're already in the bay." Trevor looked around. He was still on the scale. He hadn't moved. The inspection bay was 30 yards ahead, a separate structure with large doors. But the inspector's words carried absolute certainty, as if reality would rearrange itself to match his statement. "I'm calling this in," Trevor said, reaching for his CB. Still dead. Phone still no signal. He reached for his door handle, thinking he'd climb down and walk to the office, find a landline, call the actual ODOT and report this insanity. His door wouldn't open. The handle moved, the lock clicked, but the door stayed shut as if welded to the frame. "Please exit the vehicle, sir," the inspector said. "We need to inspect the cargo area." "My door's stuck." "No, it is. Please exit the vehicle." Trevor pulled harder on the handle. The door didn't budge. He looked down at the inspector, who was still smiling that wrong smile. "What is this place?" Trevor asked, voice tight. "This is Way Station 73. We inspect all cargo passing through this facility." "What are you inspecting for?" The inspector's smile widened. "Compliance." Trevor made a decision. He'd spent 19 years on the road learning to trust his instincts, and every instinct was screaming at him to get out of this place. He put the truck in gear. "Sir, you cannot leave without clearance." Trevor pressed the accelerator. The truck didn't move. The engine revved, the transmission engaged. He could feel the power going to the wheels, but the truck sat motionless on the scale as if held by an enormous invisible hand. "Your vehicle will be released when inspection is complete," the inspector said. He turned and walked back toward the building, still carrying Trevor's documents. Trevor sat there, heart pounding, trying everything he could think of. He tried the passenger door, locked solid. He tried the sleeper berth, sealed. He tried his emergency radio. Dead, everything was dead except the engine, which ran normally but provided no motion. Through the windows of the scale building, the uniformed figures had stopped their miming. They were all standing still now, all facing Trevor's truck. He couldn't make out their features through the glass and distance, but he could feel their attention, fixed and unwavering. Time passed. Trevor wasn't sure how long. His dashboard clock had stopped at 11:47 p.m. His phone was dead. He tried to estimate based on his own sense of duration, but he couldn't focus. Every few minutes, he'd check his mirrors, check the doors, try the radio again. Nothing changed. Then the inspector returned. He was carrying Trevor's documents and a clipboard with several sheets of paper attached. "Your inspection is complete," he said, reaching up to hand back the manifest and logbook. "However, we've identified several violations. You'll need to sign these citations." Trevor looked at the papers. They were citation forms, official-looking with the ODOT header, but the violations listed made no sense. Improper temporal alignment, cargo phase variance, reality displacement exceeding acceptable thresholds. The words were English, the formatting was correct, but the content was nonsensical. "I'm not signing these," Trevor said. "These aren't real violations. This isn't a real way station." The inspector's expression went flat. "If you refuse to sign, you cannot leave." "I'm not signing." "Then you'll stay here until you comply." Trevor felt a surge of anger cut through his fear. "You can't keep me here. I have rights. There are laws. People know my route. When I don't arrive on schedule, they'll come looking." "No one is looking for you," the inspector said calmly. "According to our records, you passed through this station 45 minutes ago. Your GPS shows you continuing south on Highway 97 at normal speed. You will arrive at your destination on schedule. Your logs are clean. There is no reason for anyone to be concerned." Trevor grabbed his phone. Still dead, but he checked the last GPS position that had been recorded before losing signal. It showed him 20 miles south of where he actually was, moving at highway speed, timestamp current. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Please sign the citations, sir." Trevor looked at the forms again. At the bottom, in small print, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Signature constitutes acceptance of alternative routing and jurisdiction transfer. Driver acknowledges voluntary entry into secondary logistics network. What's the secondary logistics network? He asked. The inspector smiled again. An alternative system for cargo that doesn't fit standard routes, for loads that need special handling, for drivers who see what they shouldn't see. I'm not signing. Then you'll stay here. We have several other drivers currently in extended inspection. Some of them have been here for quite a while. They keep us company. Trevor looked at the other buildings in the complex. There were several trucks parked in what looked like overnight spots. He could see them clearly now, and recognition hit him like a punch. He'd seen photos of some of those trucks, missing vehicles. There had been news reports, driver alerts, a Freightliner that had disappeared in 2018, a Kenworth gone in 2019. They were here, parked and dark, drivers presumably inside or in the buildings. What happens if I sign? Trevor asked. You'll be cleared to continue. You'll return to normal routing. This station will not appear on your GPS or in your memory with any clarity. You'll have a vague recollection of stopping somewhere, getting checked, continuing on. The specifics will fade. And if I do, you'll stay. Eventually, you'll need food, water, facilities. You'll have to exit your vehicle. And once you do, you become part of the station. Another inspector, another figure in the windows. You'll help us inspect other drivers who see what they shouldn't see. Trevor's hands were shaking. He looked at the citation forms. He looked at the inspector's patient, expectant face. He looked at the dark trucks parked in the lot, their drivers gone or transformed or trapped. He signed. The inspector took the form, smiled, and stepped back. You're cleared to proceed. Drive safely. Trevor's door unlocked with an audible click. His engine, which had been running but not moving the truck, suddenly engaged and he felt motion. He drove forward off the scale, toward the exit ramp back to Highway 97. In his mirrors, he watched the way station recede. The lights, the buildings, the parked trucks, all of it growing smaller. He reached the highway, merged back into his lane, and accelerated to cruising speed. His CB crackled to life. His phone showed signal. His GPS updated, showing him exactly where the inspector had said, 20 miles south of the station, as if he'd never stopped. Trevor drove the remaining distance to Klamath Falls in silence, delivered his load, filed his logs. Everything was normal, everything was routine. But when he tried to remember the details of that way station, tried to recall exactly what the inspector had looked like, what the buildings had been like, the memories slid away like water. He knew something had happened. He knew he'd stopped somewhere, signed something. But the specifics wouldn't come into focus. He still has the copies of the citations. He keeps them locked in a safe in his apartment. Sometimes he takes them out and reads them, trying to understand what he agreed to, what alternative routing means, what secondary logistics network actually is. He still drives Highway 97. He doesn't have a choice, it's part of his regular route. But now every time he drives it at night, he watches for signs that shouldn't be there, exits that aren't on the maps, facilities that don't appear on GPS. So far, he hasn't seen Way Station 73 again. But he knows it's there, somewhere in the space between mile markers, waiting in the darkness for drivers who see too much, who question too much, who don't sign the papers. And he knows that if he sees it again, if he gets pulled in for a second inspection, there won't be an option to sign and leave. Second visitors don't get that courtesy. They join the staff. Sometimes, late at night on empty highways, Trevor sees other trucks pulled over on the shoulder, hazard lights flashing, drivers standing outside looking confused or frightened. He never stops to help. He doesn't even slow down, because he learned that some stops aren't really stops. Some inspections aren't really inspections. And some stations don't appear on any map because they're not meant to exist in the same world as the roads they monitor. There's something else, something older. Something that's been inspecting more than cargo weight and log compliance for a very long time. And if you ever see signs for a way station that isn't on your GPS, that you don't remember from previous trips, that appears suddenly where nothing was before. Don't stop. Don't comply. Don't let them inspect anything. Just keep driving. Break the law if you have to. Take the citation from a real station down the road. Because the alternative is worse than any fine, any violation, any suspension of your commercial license. The alternative is becoming part of the inspection process, forever, standing in those windows wearing that uniform, waiting for the next driver who sees what they shouldn't see. Trevor signed to escape, but he doesn't know what he agreed to, and he won't know until they call him back for that second inspection, if they ever do. Story 4: The Parallel Trucker. Jimmy Valdez was running a load of auto parts from Detroit to Atlanta in March 2018, taking I-75 south through Ohio and Kentucky. He was 36 hours into a long haul, properly rested from his mandatory break at a truck stop outside of Toledo, when he noticed the other truck. It was a Peterbilt, similar model to his own, dark blue cab with a white trailer. The kind of rig you see 1,000 times a day on any interstate. What made Jimmy notice it was the license plate. Michigan Commercial, same first 3 letters as his own, just the numbers different. And the driver, visible in the other truck's cab when they pulled parallel at a red light in Cincinnati, looked remarkably similar to Jimmy himself. Jimmy studied the driver at the stoplight. Same build, same rough age, same style of ball cap. The other driver turned, made eye contact, and nodded. A professional courtesy, driver to driver. Jimmy nodded back. The light changed and they continued south. 20 miles down I-75, they ended up side by side again, matching speed in moderate traffic. Jimmy glanced over. The other driver was looking at him too, more intently now. He held up a hand, 5 fingers spread. Then he pointed ahead. 5 miles, 5 minutes. Jimmy didn't understand, but he nodded anyway. The other driver smiled and accelerated, pulling ahead and merging into Jimmy's lane about 100 yards up. Jimmy followed at a safe distance. He could see the trailer's rear doors, see the ICC bar, see the mud flaps with VALDEZ Transport printed on them. His company name, on someone else's truck. Jimmy keyed his CB. Peterbilt about 100 yards ahead, blue cab, white trailer, you got your ears on, come back. No response. He tried again, still nothing. But he could see the antenna on the other truck's cab. The driver should be able to hear him. They drove like that for 30 miles, Jimmy behind the other Peterbilt, watching it, trying to make sense of the mud flaps. Maybe someone else had bought used equipment from his company. Maybe it was a subcontractor he didn't know about. He ran a small operation, just 3 trucks including his own, but maybe his partner had hired someone without telling him. He pulled out his phone and called his business partner, Marcus. 3 rings, then voicemail. He tried again. Same result. He tried his wife. Voicemail. He tried his dispatcher. Voicemail. Every number he called went straight to voicemail without ringing. The truck ahead took an exit for a rest area. Jimmy followed, thinking he'd catch the driver at the fuel pumps, ask about the mud flaps, maybe figure out why the guy wasn't responding on the CB. The rest area was moderately busy, a dozen trucks scattered across the lot. The blue Peterbilt pulled into a spot near the back. Jimmy parked 2 spaces down, killed his engine, and climbed out. The other driver was getting out too. Jimmy got a full view of him now. Same height, same build, wearing the same brand of jeans and work boots. The driver turned around and Jimmy felt his stomach drop. It was his own face. Not similar, not close. Exact. Every detail, every line, every feature. It was like looking in a mirror, except the reflection was 20 feet away and moving independently. The other driver, the other Jimmy, locked eyes with him. Neither spoke. Then the other Jimmy smiled, reached into his cab and pulled out a clipboard. He held it up so Jimmy could see. The paperwork showed a load manifest, Detroit to Atlanta, auto parts. Same origin, same destination, same cargo as Jimmy's current load. The delivery date was printed clearly, March 14, 2018. Jimmy checked his phone for the date, March 14, 2018. The other Jimmy pulled out a second sheet. A logbook. Jimmy could see the handwriting, his own handwriting, noting stops and rest periods. The same stops Jimmy had made: Toledo, Cincinnati, this rest area. The other Jimmy pointed to his truck, then to Jimmy's truck. Then he held up 2 fingers, 2 trucks, 2 Jimmys, same cargo, same route, same day. "What the hell is this?" Jimmy called out, finding his voice. The other Jimmy didn't answer. He put the papers back, climbed into his cab, and started his engine. Then he drove away, merging back onto I-75 southbound. Jimmy stood there, heart hammering, trying to process what he'd seen. His phone buzzed, a text from his wife: "Drive safe, love you." The timestamp showed it sent 3 minutes ago, but his phone hadn't made a sound when it arrived. He called her. This time it rang. She picked up. "Hey baby, you okay?" she asked. "Yeah, I'm fine. Did you try to call me earlier? My phone was acting weird." "No, just sent that text." "Why, what's wrong? You sound stressed." Jimmy looked at the exit ramp where the other truck had disappeared. "Just a weird day on the road. I'll tell you about it when I get home." He climbed back in his truck, checked his cargo was secure, and got back on the highway. He didn't see the blue Peterbilt again for 2 hours. Then, approaching Lexington, there it was, pulled over on the shoulder, hazard lights flashing. Jimmy's instinct was to stop, check if the driver needed help. He slowed down, pulling toward the shoulder. As he got closer, he could see the other Jimmy standing outside the truck, waving at him frantically. Something felt wrong. Jimmy accelerated, pulling back into traffic without stopping. In his mirror, he watched the other Jimmy watching him. The figure didn't look distressed, didn't look like someone who needed help. He looked disappointed. The hazard lights went off. The other Jimmy climbed back into his truck and pulled onto the highway. But this time, he didn't catch up. He stayed back, following at a distance of about a quarter mile. Jimmy checked his mirrors every 30 seconds. The blue Peterbilt was always there, matching his speed, maintaining that exact distance. Not closer, not farther, like a shadow that couldn't be shaken. At Knoxville, Jimmy stopped for fuel. The other truck didn't take the exit. Jimmy filled his tank, watching the highway, expecting to see the Peterbilt pass by. It didn't. When he merged back onto I-75, the truck wasn't ahead of him. It was behind him again, quarter mile back, same distance. Jimmy grabbed his CB. "Peterbilt following me, blue cab, I know you can hear me. What do you want?" Static. Then after a long pause, a voice came through, his own voice. "I'm trying to warn you." Jimmy's blood went cold. "Warn me about what?" "Atlanta. Don't go to Atlanta. Not this time, not this load. Take a different route. Delay the delivery. Do anything except drive straight there." "Why? What happens in Atlanta?" "The accident, the one that kills us." Jimmy nearly swerved off the road. He steadied the wheel, pulse racing. "What are you talking about? What accident?" March 15th, 2:17 a.m. I-75 approaching downtown Atlanta. A vehicle crosses the median, head-on collision. "We don't survive." "That's insane. That hasn't happened. That can't have happened." "It hasn't happened to you yet," the voice said. "But it happened to me. I'm what's left. I'm the version that's still driving, still trying to deliver that load, still trying to complete what I started. But I'm not alive anymore. I'm just momentum. And I've been stuck in this loop, running the same route, watching you make the same decisions I made, trying to warn you before you get to the same end." Jimmy looked in his mirror. The blue Peterbilt was still there, steady and constant. "You're saying you're me. From the future, that I die tomorrow morning." "Not the future, not the past. Parallel. I'm the version of you that already made the wrong choices, that kept driving when I should have stopped, that didn't listen to the warnings." "What warnings?" "Your phone not working, calls going to voicemail, your wife's text arriving late. The timing synchronization issues, they're signs. Reality trying to prevent the accident by creating small disruptions. But I ignored them. I kept driving. I thought I was just tired, thought the phone issues were normal technical glitches." Jimmy's hands were shaking on the wheel. "So what? I stop. I don't deliver this load. That doesn't make sense. I have a contract. I have a deadline." "Break the contract, abandon the load, drive to Charlotte instead, take I-40. Go anywhere except straight down I-75 to Atlanta tonight. The accident happens at 2:17 a.m. If you're not on that stretch of highway at that time, you survive. And if I do stop, if I change routes, what happens to you? Silence. Then, I don't know, maybe I stop existing. Maybe I finally finish dying. Maybe I just keep driving this same stretch of highway forever, but you survive. That's all that matters. Jimmy drove in silence for 5 miles, thinking. Every rational part of his brain said this was impossible. Hallucination, exhaustion, carbon monoxide leak, something medical, but he'd seen that face. He'd seen those mud flaps with his company name. He'd heard his own voice on the CB explaining his own death. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" Jimmy asked. "Check your cargo," the voice replied. Jimmy thought about his load, auto parts, standard shipment. He'd watched it being loaded in Detroit, had the manifests, everything by the book. "What about it?" "Look in box 27, third row from the front, left side." Jimmy couldn't check while driving, but he'd memorized his cargo layout. Box 27 existed, but it should contain transmission components. "What's in box 27? Open it when you stop next, you'll understand." The blue Peterbilt was taking an exit. Jimmy watched it leave the highway, hazard lights flashing once, twice, then gone from view. He didn't see the truck again, but the words stayed with him. The accident, 2:17 a.m., I-75 approaching Atlanta. At the next rest area, Jimmy parked and went into his trailer. He found box 27, third row from front, left side. He opened it. Inside, among the transmission components, was a newspaper, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, dated March 15, 2018. The headline read, "Fatal Crash on I-75 Claims Truck Driver's Life, Valdez Transport Vehicle in Head-on Collision." There was a photo, twisted metal, emergency vehicles, a blue Peterbilt barely recognizable. Jimmy dropped the newspaper. He backed out of the trailer, locked it, and sat in his cab, breathing hard. He called his dispatcher. "Actually got through this time. I need to reschedule the Atlanta delivery. I'm having mechanical issues. Going to need to stop in Chattanooga, get the truck checked out." "That's going to put you past the delivery window, Jimmy." "I know. Add it to my record. I'm not risking a breakdown with this load." The dispatcher sighed but agreed. Jimmy got back on the highway, but took the I-24 exit toward Chattanooga instead of continuing on I-75 to Atlanta. He found a repair shop, told them he was hearing weird noises from the transmission, paid for a full inspection even though nothing was wrong. The inspection took 6 hours. By the time he got back on the road, it was mid-morning on March 15th. He took a different route to Atlanta, bypassing the stretch of I-75 where the accident was supposed to happen. He delivered his load late, took a penalty on his contract, cost his company money, but he delivered it alive. That night at his hotel in Atlanta, he looked up traffic reports from the previous night. There had been an accident on I-75 northbound lanes around 2:00 a.m. A sedan had crossed the median, gone into southbound traffic. 2 people in the sedan had been killed, but no truck was involved, no head-on collision. The accident had happened, but without him. Jimmy never saw the blue Peterbilt again, never heard that voice on his CB again. When he went back to check his trailer, box 27 contained only transmission components. The newspaper was gone. He still drives, still runs routes between Detroit and Atlanta, but he plans them carefully now. Pays attention to small disruptions, phone glitches, timing inconsistencies, moments when something feels slightly off. And he watches his mirrors for trucks that look too familiar, driven by people who look too much like himself, because he knows now that somewhere, in some parallel stream of time and events, there's a version of him that made different choices, that ignored the warnings, that's still driving, still trying to deliver that load, still heading toward an accident that killed him. Maybe that parallel version is trying to warn other drivers now. Maybe he's stuck repeating the same route forever, looking for himself in different timelines, trying to prevent the same death over and over. Or maybe there are hundreds of Jimmy Valdez's out there, all driving the same routes, all carrying the same loads, all experiencing slightly different versions of the same events. Some of them die in accidents. Some of them get warned. Some of them warn others. Reality branches, splits, parallels itself. And on America's deadliest highways, sometimes those parallel realities get close enough that you can see yourself coming the other way, driving the same truck, carrying the same cargo, living the same life. If you ever see your own truck approaching in the opposite lane, if you ever see someone who looks exactly like you driving the same route you're on, don't wave. Don't acknowledge them. And for God's sake, listen if they try to warn you. Because they're you, and they're trying to save you from becoming them. Story 5. The Broadcast from Nowhere. Linda Parrish had been running independent freight for 23 years, specializing in overnight hauls across the Southwest. On February 9, 2022, she was driving a load of medical equipment from Phoenix to El Paso, taking I-10 east through the empty stretches of Arizona and New Mexico. The route was familiar, a run she'd made at least 50 times, and she'd learned to love the solitude of those dark desert hours when the highway belonged to truckers and night owls. At 3:30 a.m., somewhere between Lordsburg and Deming, her radio picked up a signal. Linda had been listening to a classic rock station out of Tucson, but the signal had faded 20 miles back, leaving her with static. She'd been about to switch to her playlist when the new broadcast came through, clear and strong despite being in the middle of nowhere. It was a traffic report. I-10 eastbound heavy congestion reported between mile markers 85 and 92 due to multi-vehicle accident. Emergency services on scene. Estimated delay time is approximately 3 hours. Alternate routes are advised. Take exit 82 to State Route 338 south, then reconnect to I-10 at Deming. Repeat I-10 eastbound blocked between markers 85 and 92. Linda checked her GPS. She was at mile marker 78, 7 miles from the reported accident, but there was a problem. She could see the road ahead and it was completely empty. No flashing lights, no traffic backup, no indication of any accident. Just dark, clear highway stretching into the distance. She grabbed her CB. This is eastbound Linda on I-10. Anybody seeing an accident up ahead? Just heard a traffic report about congestion at marker 85. Come back. Static, then a response. Negative Linda, I'm at marker 90 right now, road's clear. No accident. Where'd you hear that report? Radio broadcast just came through on hold on. Linda checked the radio display. It showed no station, no frequency, just FM and a strength indicator showing full bars. That's weird. It's coming through clear, but there's no station ID. Might be some emergency override broadcast. The other driver suggested, but I'm not seeing anything. Road's empty. Linda drove on mile marker 80, then 82. The exit mentioned in the broadcast appeared on her right, State Route 338. The sign was old, the reflective paint faded. She'd never taken that exit before, never had a reason to. It led into empty desert, small towns with populations in the double digits. The radio broadcast repeated, I-10 eastbound blocked at mile markers 85 through 92. Take alternate route via State Route 338. Emergency services require all commercial traffic to divert. Linda looked ahead. Mile marker 85 was coming up. She could see it clearly, and beyond it the road was empty. No accident, no emergency vehicles, nothing. She passed mile marker 85, still nothing. The road was clear. The radio crackled again, but this time the voice was different, urgent. All commercial vehicles on I-10 eastbound, you need to evacuate the highway immediately. Exit at State Route 338. Do not proceed past mile marker 92. Repeat, do not proceed past mile marker 92. Emergency situation in progress. What emergency? Linda muttered. She looked at her CB. Anybody else hearing this? Some broadcast saying we need to evacuate I-10. Several drivers responded, all negative. No one else was hearing the broadcast. Linda was alone with this signal, whatever it was. Mile marker 88, then 90, then 92. The highway ahead disappeared, not gradually, not fading into darkness or obscured by weather. It simply ended. The pavement continued for maybe another 100 yards, then stopped at a perfect, clean edge beyond which there was nothing. Not dirt, not desert, not darkness. Nothing. A complete absence of everything, like the world had been cut away, leaving a void. Linda slammed on her brakes. Her truck shuddered, tires screaming, the load shifting against its restraints. She came to a stop about 50 feet from the edge of the world. She sat there, hands locked on the wheel, staring at the impossibility ahead of her. The highway ended. Reality ended. Beyond that edge was a nothingness her brain couldn't process, couldn't assign color or texture to. It was simply not there. Her CB exploded with chatter. What the hell? Did you see that? Where did the road go? Multiple drivers, all seeing the same thing now, all panicking. The radio broadcast came through again, calm and clear. All vehicles remain calm. Do not attempt to proceed past the discontinuity. Do not exit your vehicles. Emergency response protocols are in effect. You are safe as long as you remain on the existing highway infrastructure. Safe, Linda said aloud. Safe from what? As if in answer, something moved in the void. It wasn't coming from the nothing. It was the nothing, a portion of that absence moving, flowing toward the highway like a slow tide. Where it touched the pavement, the road ceased to exist. The edge was creeping toward her, consuming reality at a steady, unhurried pace. Linda threw her truck into reverse, backing up. Other trucks were doing the same, a confused retreat as drivers processed what they were seeing. The CB was chaos, everyone talking at once, voices overlapping in confusion and fear. The radio broadcast, "Do not panic, do not attempt to outrun the discontinuity. It is expanding at a fixed rate. You have approximately 11 minutes to exit the highway via State Route 338. This is your only evacuation route. Proceed in an orderly fashion." Linda looked in her mirrors. State Route 338 was behind her now, 4 miles back. She spun the wheel, completed a 3-point turn on the highway, an illegal maneuver she'd never attempted before. Other trucks were doing the same, the eastbound lanes becoming a confused mess of vehicles turning around. She drove west back toward the exit, watching the mile markers count down. Other trucks were ahead of her, behind her, all fleeing toward the same escape route. The radio kept broadcasting, calm and methodical. Maintain safe following distance. Do not exceed posted speed limits. You have sufficient time to evacuate if you proceed calmly. Linda reached exit 82. State Route 338 curved south, a 2-lane road in good condition despite its remote location. She took it, along with a dozen other trucks. They formed a convoy, headlights stretching out in a long line, driving into the desert darkness. The radio broadcast changed. Follow State Route 338 for 17 miles. You will reach a facility. Proceed to the facility for further instructions. What facility? Linda asked the CB. Is there anything out here? No one answered. No one knew. State Route 338 wasn't a major route. It connected small towns, passed through empty federal land. There were no facilities, no rest areas, no services of any kind. But 17 miles down there was. It appeared suddenly, a complex of buildings and lights in the middle of nowhere. Large, modern structures that looked like a cross between a military installation and a research facility. High fences, guard towers, parking areas full of vehicles. Signs reading Emergency Evacuation Processing Center followed directional markers. The convoy of trucks followed the signs into a massive parking area. People in official-looking uniforms, though Linda couldn't identify what agency they represented, were directing vehicles into organized rows. Linda parked where indicated, killed her engine, and sat there trying to process what was happening. A person in uniform approached her door. Linda rolled down the window. "Driver name and manifest, please," the person said, holding a tablet. "Linda Parrish, I'm hauling medical equipment to El Paso. What is this place? What's happening on I-10? Discontinuity event, ma'am. Spontaneous infrastructure failure. We're processing all displaced traffic. How did you receive your evacuation instructions? Radio broadcast, but my CB said nobody else could hear it. The person made notes on the tablet. Individual direct transmission. That's standard for drivers who show resistance to suggested routing. The system identifies non-compliance and increases signal strength to ensure message receipt. What system? Who's broadcasting? The facility, ma'am. We monitor highway conditions and provide guidance during critical events. Please proceed to Building 3 for debriefing and refreshments. Your vehicle and cargo will be secured here until the discontinuity is resolved. Linda climbed out of her cab. Around her, other drivers were doing the same, all looking confused and shaken. The facility was enormous, far too large to have been built without her knowing about it. She'd driven this route for years. This hadn't been here last month. Building 3 was a cafeteria-style space with tables, coffee, sandwiches laid out like a corporate break room. There were maybe 40 drivers there, sitting in small groups, talking in low, urgent voices. Linda grabbed coffee and sat down. A driver she recognized from the highway, a man named Carlos, was at the next table. "You see that thing?" he asked Linda. "That hole in the world. I saw it." "What was it? Some kind of sinkhole, earthquake?" "I don't think sinkholes look like that," Linda said. "That was something else." A woman in uniform entered the cafeteria and stood at the front. "Drivers, may I have your attention, please? The discontinuity event on I-10 is being addressed by our emergency response teams. Current estimates suggest the highway will be passable again in approximately 6 hours. You will be provided with accommodation here until that time. Your vehicles and cargo are secure. All delays will be documented for your shipping companies. There will be no penalties or charges related to this incident." A driver stood up. "What caused it? What are we dealing with here?" The woman's expression remained professional and neutral. "Infrastructure spontaneous failure. It happens occasionally in remote areas due to subsurface instabilities. Nothing to be concerned about. We have extensive experience managing these events." "I've been driving for 30 years, the driver said. "I've never heard of roads just disappearing into nothing. That's because these events are handled quickly and efficiently by our teams. There's rarely media coverage or public awareness. We prefer to keep these matters quiet to avoid unnecessary panic." She smiled in a way that was meant to be reassuring but felt rehearsed. "Please relax, have some food. We'll update you when the highway is clear." The hours that followed were surreal. Linda tried her phone, but there was no signal. The facility's Wi-Fi required passwords they weren't given. The TV in the cafeteria showed normal news broadcasts, weather, sports, nothing about a highway discontinuity event. Linda wandered the facility. No one stopped her. She found hallways leading to other buildings, offices with computers and monitors. On one monitor, she saw a map of the western United States with red zones marked. Dozens of them, scattered across remote highway sections, each one labeled with coordinates and dates. One of the red zones was on I-10 at mile marker 92. Date, February 9, 2022. Her current location, but there were others: I-80 in Nevada, Highway 97 in Oregon, I-75 in Florida, all marked with dates spanning years. Some were labeled resolved, others monitoring, some active. "You're not supposed to be in this area." Linda turned. One of the uniformed people was standing behind her, not angry but firm. "What are those red zones?" Linda asked. "Monitoring locations, areas where infrastructure requires extra attention. Those dates go back years, and there are dozens of locations. How often does this happen?" The person didn't answer, just guided Linda back to the cafeteria with a gentle but insistent touch on her elbow. 6 hours later, they were told the highway was clear. Linda and the other drivers were escorted back to their trucks. The vehicles had been refueled, the cargo inspected, and secured. Everything was exactly as they'd left it, except cleaner somehow, as if the trucks had been detailed. They drove back to I-10 in convoy, retracing State Route 338. At the interchange, everything looked normal. The highway stretched east and west, perfect pavement, clear lines. No void, no discontinuity, as if it had never happened. Linda drove to El Paso, delivered her load on time despite the delay. Her dispatch had no record of her being diverted. Her GPS logs showed her traveling I-10 without deviation. It was as if those 6 hours hadn't existed. But she had the map in her memory. Those red zones scattered across the highway systems, active monitoring, discontinuity events, plural, multiple locations, multiple dates. She started paying attention after that, monitoring driver forums, trucker message boards, CB chatter from across the country. She found references, oblique mentions. Drivers who'd seen things they couldn't explain, roads that ended in nothing, facilities that appeared where nothing should be, radio broadcasts that warned of dangers no one else could see, and she found patterns. Certain stretches of highway were mentioned repeatedly, the same mile markers, the same descriptions of impossibility. Linda still drives, but she carries maps now, physical maps with her own annotations. Red marks where drivers have reported discontinuities, blue marks for the mysterious facilities, green for evacuation routes that don't appear on GPS. Last week, she was on I-40 in New Mexico. Her radio picked up a broadcast, clear and strong, no station ID. I-40 westbound discontinuity event reported at mile marker 114. Evacuate via State Route 117. Proceed to facility for processing. Linda was at mile marker 95. She took the next exit, found an alternate route, didn't go near marker 114. Later, she checked online. There were no reports of anything wrong on I-40. No accidents, no closures, no evacuations. Just another normal day on the highway. But somewhere out there, other drivers probably heard that broadcast. Probably saw something they couldn't explain. Probably spent 6 hours at a facility that doesn't exist, watching their memories of the event fade into vague recollection. The highways have always been dangerous. Everyone knows that. Accidents, whether fatigue, mechanical failures. Those are the documented risks, the known dangers. But there are other risks, things that don't get reported, things that get handled quietly by people in uniforms who work at facilities that don't appear on any maps. Things that cause roads to simply end, reality to simply stop, leaving nothing but void. And those things are expanding. Those red zones are growing in number, increasing in frequency. Linda sees the pattern, she tracks it, and she knows with absolute certainty that eventually there will be too many discontinuity events to handle quietly, too many to explain away, too many to keep secret. When that happens, when the voids start appearing faster than they can be resolved, the highways will become impassable. Not because of traffic or accidents or weather, but because reality itself is failing, 1 mile marker at a time, one stretch of pavement at a time. And there won't be enough evacuation routes, enough facilities, enough people in uniforms to save everyone. Linda keeps driving, but she keeps her radio tuned to scan mode, always listening for that calm, clear voice that warns of dangers ahead. And when she hears it, she turns around, finds another way, takes another route, because she knows the truth. The highways are America's deadliest not because of human error or mechanical failure, but because beneath the pavement, beyond the mile markers, in the spaces between exits, something is consuming the roads themselves. And no amount of traffic reporting can warn drivers about the edge of the world appearing in their headlights. You just have to hope you're listening to the right signal when it happens, and that you still have time to turn around. Story 6. The cargo that watched. Rafael Santos picked up what should have been a routine load from a warehouse in Memphis on July 22, 2019. The manifest listed electronic components, 28 identical crates, destination San Francisco, standard cross-country haul. Rafael had 16 years of experience, clean safety record, and a reputation for reliability. He didn't ask questions about cargo beyond what was legally required. You loaded, you secured, you delivered. The warehouse was Industrial Anonymous, one of those sprawling buildings in the logistics district that could contain anything. The loading crew was efficient and silent, using forklifts to place the crates in his trailer in a specific configuration. When Raphael tried to make small talk, ask about the best route to take or weather conditions ahead, they didn't respond. Just loaded the cargo, had him sign the manifest, and waved him through the gate. Raphael secured the trailer, checked the seals, and pulled out onto I-40 West. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and red. He planned to drive through the night, make Oklahoma City by morning, push through to Albuquerque the next day. Standard schedule, standard route. The first strange thing happened 2 hours into the drive, just past Little Rock. Raphael felt the truck pull slightly to the left. Not severely, just a gentle drift that required minor steering correction. He checked his mirrors, his gauges. Everything looked normal. Tire pressure good, load secure. No obvious issues, but the pull persisted. Constant, subtle, as if the truck wanted to veer left no matter how he adjusted. He stopped at a truck stop, walked around the rig, checked the tires, checked the suspension. Nothing wrong. But when he got back on the highway, the pull was still there. At midnight, somewhere in Oklahoma, his CB started picking up interference. Not voices, not music, just a low hum that seemed to pulse in a slow, regular rhythm. He tried changing channels, but the hum was on every frequency. He turned the CB off. The hum continued, now seeming to come from the trailer itself, vibrating through the frame of the truck. Raphael pulled over at a rest area, got out, walked back to the trailer. He pressed his ear against the side panel. The hum was definitely coming from inside. Deep, rhythmic, almost organic sounding, like breathing. He checked the seals, intact. He had no authority to open the trailer anyway, no reason to. The cargo was secured, the seals were good. Electronic components according to the manifest. Maybe some kind of equipment that needed to stay powered, battery backups creating the hum. But electronic equipment didn't breathe. Raphael got back in his cab. He was tired, he told himself, hearing things, imagining things. He'd push through to Oklahoma City, grab a real rest, reassess in the morning. The pull to the left got stronger. It wasn't subtle anymore. He had to actively fight the steering wheel to keep the truck going straight. And the hum had changed, evolved. It now had variations in pitch and rhythm, almost like a pattern, like language. At 2 a.m., Raphael's headlights caught something in the road ahead. A person standing in his lane, not moving. Raphael's breath caught. He flashed his high beams, blasted his horn. The figure didn't move. He swerved, heart pounding, missing the person by inches. In his mirror, he looked back. The road was empty, no person, nothing. Jesus, Raphael muttered. He'd almost hit someone, or thought he had, but there was nobody there. 10 minutes later, it happened again. Different location, same scenario. A figure in the road, motionless. He swerved again, honked again. The figure vanished the moment he passed. Then it started happening constantly. Every few minutes, a figure in the road. Always ahead, always motionless, always disappearing when he got close. Sometimes they looked like people. Sometimes they looked like something else, shapes that suggested human form but were wrong in ways Raphael couldn't articulate. The pull to the left became a drag, as if the trailer was fighting him, trying to steer the truck off the highway. Raphael's arms ached from fighting the wheel. The hum from the trailer had become loud, filling the cab, vibrating through his seat, his chest, his skull. He pulled over again, this time at a 24-hour truck stop with good lighting and other drivers around. He parked, got out on shaking legs, and walked around the truck. Several other drivers were in the lot, standing near their rigs, smoking or talking. Raphael approached 2 of them. "You guys see anything weird on the road tonight? People standing in the lanes?" They looked at him, expressions neutral. "No," one said. "Haven't seen anything. I keep seeing figures. Like they're standing in the middle of the highway, but when I get close, they're not there." The 2 drivers exchanged a glance. "You feeling okay?" the other one asked. "How long you been driving today?" I'm fine, I'm not that tired, I'm telling you I'm seeing things out there. Maybe you need to rest, brother, pull over, sleep a few hours. Raphael nodded. They were probably right. He was more tired than he thought. He went into the truck stop, got coffee, used the restroom. When he came back out, the two drivers were gone, but there was a piece of paper tucked under his windshield wiper. He pulled it out. Handwritten shaky letters. Your cargo is making you see them. Don't listen to the hum. Open the trailer. Raphael looked around the parking lot. No one was nearby. He climbed into his cab, locked the doors, and stared at the note. Don't open the trailer. He hadn't been planning to. He had no reason to. But now, with the note, with the hum, with the figures in the road, all he could think about was opening the trailer and seeing what was really in those 28 crates. He sat there for 20 minutes debating. Finally, he grabbed a flashlight and climbed out, went to the trailer. The seals were still intact. Breaking them would void his insurance, could cost him his job, but he needed to know. He broke the seals. The trailer doors swung open. Inside, the 28 crates were arranged exactly as they'd been loaded. But now, in the beam of his flashlight, Raphael could see that the crates were breathing. Not the cargo inside them, the crates themselves. Wooden panels expanding and contracting, rhythmic and deliberate. Raphael stepped back. This wasn't possible. Wood doesn't breathe, but he watched it happen, undeniable. Each crate pulsed slowly, in sync with the hum he'd been hearing. Then one of the crates shifted, not falling, not sliding. It moved deliberately, rotating slightly as if whatever was inside had repositioned itself. Raphael wanted to run, wanted to leave the truck, call his dispatcher, refuse the load, but he was locked in. He'd broken the seals, he'd opened the trailer, he was responsible now for whatever happened. He grabbed a pry bar from his tool kit, approached the nearest crate. The hum intensified, the pitch rising. He wedged the bar under the lid and pried. The wood splintered. The lid came free. Inside the crate, nestled in foam packaging, was what looked like a large glass sphere filled with dark fluid. And floating in the fluid was an eye. Not a human eye. Too large, with too many layers of structure. But definitely an eye with an iris that contracted when Raphael's flashlight hit it, with a pupil that focused directly on him. Raphael dropped the pry bar. The eye tracked the movement. Then it blinked, a membrane sliding across its surface from side to side. He backed away. Looked at the other crates. 28 crates, 28 eyes, all of them watching. That's what the hum was, that's what the pull had been. The eyes, somehow conscious, somehow aware, trying to steer the truck, trying to make him see things, trying to, what? Escape? Communicate? Raphael ran to the cab, grabbed his phone. No signal. He tried his CB. Dead. He tried the truck stop's phone. Line disconnected. Every method of communication was blocked. The eyes didn't want him calling anyone. He got back in the truck, started the engine. He'd drive to the nearest police station, explain everything. They'd confiscate the cargo, investigate. He didn't care about his contract, his reputation. This was beyond normal freight. But when he put the truck in gear, it wouldn't move. The engine ran, the transmission engaged, but the truck sat motionless as if held by an enormous weight. The hum from the trailer changed. It resolved into something almost like words, though no language Raphael recognized. The syllables were wrong, the phonemes impossible for human vocal cords. But he understood the meaning anyway, directly in his mind. Continue to destination. Do not deviate. Do not alert authorities. You are necessary. Necessary for what? Raphael said aloud. Delivery. We must reach the facility. We must arrive intact. You will complete this transport. What are you? Cargo. Inventory. Assets being relocated. Your species lacks the terminology for what we are. You will deliver us. Raphael tried the door. Locked, wouldn't open. Windows wouldn't roll down. He was sealed in the cab with a trailer full of impossible, intelligent cargo that could control his vehicle, could control his perceptions, could apparently control him. What if I refuse? He asked. You cannot refuse. You agreed to transport us. Contract is binding. You will deliver us to San Francisco. You will place us at the designated coordinates. You will not remember any of this with clarity. The truck began to move, though Raphael wasn't touching the controls. It backed out of the parking spot, navigated through the lot, merged onto I-40 West. The steering wheel turned on its own, the pedals moved without his feet on them. He was a passenger now, watching his own truck drive itself. The figures appeared again on the road, but now Raphael understood. They weren't hallucinations. They were projections, tests, the eyes gauging his reactions, measuring his psychological parameters. They were learning him, mapping his mind. For 3 days, the truck drove itself across America. Raphael sat in the cab, sometimes sleeping, sometimes eating from his supplies, sometimes just watching the highway scroll past. The eyes didn't harm him. They just used him. His body, his vehicle, his commercial authority to transport cargo across state lines. In Arizona, the trailer doors opened on their own at a rest area. One crate was removed by people who walked with the same 2 precise movements as the loading crew in Memphis. They loaded the crate into a van and drove away. In Nevada, 2 more crates were removed the same way. In California, the remaining 25 crates were removed at various locations: warehouses, industrial parks, research facilities. Each time, people came with the same blank efficiency, took the crates, disappeared. Finally, on the 4th day, the truck arrived in San Francisco at a nondescript building in the industrial district. The last crate was removed. Raphael sat in his cab, exhausted, traumatized, barely able to process what had happened. The hum stopped. The pull stopped. The sense of being watched stopped. His door unlocked. Raphael climbed out. A man in a suit approached, handed him an envelope. "Your delivery is complete. Payment has been processed. Your truck has been refueled and serviced. You're free to go." "What were those things?" Raphael asked, voice hoarse. "According to your manifest, electronic components, that's what you delivered, that's what you'll report." "They were alive, they controlled my truck." The man smiled slightly. "I think the drive was more stressful than you realized. Long hours, probably not enough sleep. You did an excellent job completing the delivery on time. Your company will receive a bonus for exceptional service." Raphael looked at his truck. It was clean, gleaming, as if professionally detailed. The trailer was empty. The seals he'd broken were replaced with new ones, intact, showing no evidence of tampering. "You don't remember breaking the seals," the man said. It wasn't a question, it was an instruction. And Raphael realized the man was right. The memory was fading, becoming vague, dreamlike. Had he broken the seals? Had he seen eyes in crates? Or had he just driven for 4 days straight, exhausted, hallucinating? "I didn't break the seals," Raphael said slowly. "That's correct. You delivered the cargo intact. Professional, efficient work. We'll be using your services again." Raphael drove his empty truck back to Memphis. The trip took 3 days, normal days. No hum, no pull, no figures. Just highway and sky and the peaceful monotony of the road. He doesn't remember much about the delivery anymore. Just vague impressions, a sense of unease, a feeling that something was watching him. But the specific details have dissolved, become fuzzy, except for one thing. When he closes his eyes, sometimes he sees them. 28 eyes floating in dark fluid, all focused on him, watching, waiting. And 3 months ago, his dispatcher called with another load. Memphis to Seattle, electronics, same warehouse. Raphael took it. He didn't know why. He'd had a feeling he shouldn't, but the feeling faded when he thought about the good pay, the easy route. He picked up the cargo, 23 crates this time, and drove west. The hum started after 2 hours, the pull to the left after 4. The figures appeared in the road that night. Raphael didn't fight it this time. He just drove, let the truck steer itself, let the eyes do whatever they needed to do. It was easier that way, less stressful. He made his delivery in Seattle, doesn't remember the details, just knows he completed it, got paid, got a bonus. Now he waits for the next call from that same warehouse, because there will be another call. There always is. The eyes need to move across the country, need to reach their destinations, and they need drivers who have already been processed, who have already learned not to fight, who have already accepted their role as cargo transport vessels for things that shouldn't exist. Raphael still drives truck, still takes loads from normal warehouses, normal cargo. But when the call comes from Memphis, from that anonymous industrial building, he goes. Every time. Because the eyes remember him and he's necessary. The contract is binding, and you can't refuse what you don't remember agreeing to. Sometimes at truck stops he sees other drivers with the same blank, exhausted look, the same distant focus. He wonders if they're hauling crates too, if they hear the hum, if they see the figures. He never asks. There's no point. They wouldn't remember even if they wanted to tell him. The eyes make sure of that. The cargo watches, the cargo steers, the cargo always reaches its destination. And the drivers, they're just part of the transport system, biological components, necessary but ultimately forgettable. Raphael will drive until he can't anymore, until his body gives out or his mind finally breaks. And then another driver will take his place, take that call from Memphis, pick up those crates, hear that hum. The cargo always finds new transporters. It's patient. It's been moving across America's highways for longer than any of them have been driving, and it'll keep moving long after they're all gone. Story 7. The HITCHHIKER wasn't there. Maria Gonzalez was running empty back to Laredo from Denver on a clear night in November 2021, taking I-25 south through New Mexico. Empty trailer runs were part of the business, repositioning for the next load, and Maria had learned to appreciate the lighter fuel consumption and easier handling. She was making good time, pushing through Albuquerque around midnight, planning to reach the border by mid-morning. Just south of Socorro, in a particularly empty stretch of highway, her headlights caught a figure on the shoulder. A woman, standing with her thumb out, classic hitchhiker pose. Maria's first instinct was to keep going. She'd been driving professionally for 11 years and had never picked up a hitchhiker. Company policy forbade it, insurance wouldn't cover it, and it was just common sense to avoid the risk. But something made her look again. The woman was wearing what looked like a wedding dress, dirty and torn. Her hair was disheveled. Even from a distance, she looked desperate, possibly injured. Maria slowed down. She knew she shouldn't stop. But the woman looked so distressed, so genuinely in need of help. Maria pulled onto the shoulder about 50 yards past the woman, stopped, and watched her mirrors. The woman didn't move, just stood there, thumb out, staring at the truck. Maria grabbed her CB. This is southbound Maria on I-25, mile marker 117. Anybody else seeing a hitchhiker out here? Woman in a white dress. Static, then a response. Negative, Maria, haven't seen anybody. You picking up hitchhikers now? The tone was joking but carried a warning. No, just. She looks like she needs help, like maybe she's been in an accident or something. Not your problem, driver. Call it in to state police if you're worried, but don't stop for strangers. You know better. Maria did know better, but she kept watching the woman in her mirrors, still not moving, just standing there. Now that Maria was stopped, shouldn't the woman be walking toward the truck? Shouldn't she be showing some sign of relief or urgency? Maria made a decision. She grabbed her phone, called 911. The operator answered and Maria explained. Woman on the side of I-25, possibly in distress, wearing a torn wedding dress. The operator thanked her, said they'd send someone to check it out, and told Maria she could continue her route. Maria put the truck in gear and drove away. In her mirrors, she watched the woman recede into darkness, still standing in the same spot, still not moving. 20 miles down the road, Maria saw her again. Same woman, same dress, same position. Standing on the shoulder with her thumb out. Maria's stomach tight. That wasn't possible. She'd been driving at highway speed for 20 minutes. There was no way the same woman could be ahead of her. She kept driving, didn't slow down, just watched in her mirrors as the woman disappeared behind her. 10 miles later, there she was again. Same shoulder, same pose. Definitely the same woman. Maria could see the specific pattern of dirt on the dress, the way the woman's hair fell across her shoulders. Maria grabbed her CB. I'm seeing something really weird here. That hitchhiker, she keeps appearing ahead of me. I've passed her 3 times now. A different voice responded, older male with the measured tone of someone who'd been on the road for decades. "What mile marker are you at?" "Just past 147. A long pause. White dress, dark hair, just standing there not moving. "Yeah, you've seen her. 2 years ago, picked her up. Worst mistake of my driving career." Maria felt ice slide down her spine. What happened? "She got in the truck, sat in the passenger seat, didn't say a word. I tried talking to her, asking if she was okay, where she needed to go. Nothing. She just stared straight ahead. After about 10 minutes, I looked over and she was wrong. Her face was wrong, features in the right places but not quite right, like a copy of a person that wasn't done correctly." "What did you do?" "I pulled over, told her to get out. She didn't move. So I got out, walked around to the passenger side, opened her door. She wasn't there. Seat was empty, but I'd been watching her the whole time. She didn't leave, she just stopped being there." "That's impossible." "I know what I saw, and here's the thing. After that night she started appearing on other routes, other highways. I've seen her in Montana, in Idaho, in Texas. Always the same, always on the shoulder. And other drivers have seen her too. Some of them picked her up." "Most of them don't drive anymore." "Why not?" "Because she doesn't leave, not really. They say she sits in the passenger seat forever. Even when she's not visible, they can feel her there, hear her breathing. Some drivers have gotten rid of their trucks, bought new ones, and she's still there. It's like once you stop for her, she's with you permanently." Maria looked at her passenger seat. Empty, clean, normal. "I didn't stop," she said. "I called it in, but I didn't pick her up." "Good, keep it that way. Don't stop, don't acknowledge her. She appears when she wants attention. If you ignore her, she might leave you alone." Maria drove on. The woman appeared 7 more times over the next 40 miles. Always ahead, always on the shoulder, always in exactly the same pose. Maria kept her eyes forward, didn't slow down, didn't react. Then the CB crackled again, a new voice, female, young. "Please stop, please, I need help, I've been walking for so long." Maria's breath caught. She grabbed the CB. "Who is this? Identify yourself." "My name is Sarah. I was in an accident. My car went off the road. My husband is hurt. We need help. Please, somebody stop." The voice was desperate, sincere, exactly what you'd expect from someone in genuine distress. But Maria had learned to trust her instincts. "What's your location, Sarah?" "Mile marker 162. Please hurry." Maria was at mile marker 155, 7 miles south of where the voice claimed to be. But Maria looked in her mirror and saw the woman in the wedding dress standing behind her on the shoulder, now facing the direction of Maria's truck. The woman's mouth was moving. The voice on the CB continued. "Please, he's bleeding. I don't know how much longer he can wait. I see your lights. Are you stopping? Please stop." Maria turned off her CB. The voice stopped mid-sentence. In her mirror, the woman in the wedding dress stopped moving her mouth. Maria's hands were shaking on the wheel. This wasn't a real person. This was something else. Something using the image of a distressed woman to lure drivers into stopping. Something that could project its voice through CB radios. Something that appeared and reappeared miles ahead of her position. She accelerated, pushing her speed up to 75, then 80. The speed limit was 75, but she didn't care. She wanted distance, wanted to get through this stretch of highway as fast as possible. The woman appeared again, but this time she was standing in the middle of the road. Maria didn't have time to react. She was going 80 miles per hour, empty trailer, good brakes, but not enough distance to stop. She was going to hit the woman. She braced for impact, gripped the wheel, tried to maintain control. The truck passed through the woman as if she weren't there. No impact, no resistance. Maria looked in her mirrors. The woman was behind her now, still standing in the middle of the road, undisturbed by the multi-ton vehicle that had just driven through her. Maria felt tears on her face. She wiped them away angrily. She was a professional driver. She didn't scare easily. But this was beyond anything in her experience, beyond any training or preparation. Her phone rang. She looked at the screen. Sarah calling. She hadn't programmed any Sarah into her contacts. She let it go to voicemail. Seconds later, a voicemail notification. She didn't listen to it. She deleted it without playing it. The woman appeared twice more, then stopped. Maria drove for an hour without seeing her again. Relief started to creep in. Maybe it was over. Maybe she'd passed through whatever zone that thing operated in. Then her passenger door opened. Maria nearly swerved off the road. She looked over. The door was hanging open, wind rushing into the cab. She reached over, grabbed it, slammed it shut, locked it. It opened again immediately. "Stop," a voice said, not from the CB, from the passenger seat. Maria looked over. The woman in the wedding dress was sitting there, staring at her. Maria screamed. She couldn't help it. The sound tore out of her throat, primal and terrified. The woman's face was wrong, just like the other driver had said. Features in approximately the right places, but the proportions off. Eyes slightly too far apart. Mouth slightly too wide. Skin texture that didn't quite look like skin. "Why didn't you stop?" the woman asked. Her voice was flat, emotionless, despite the desperate plea it had carried over the CB. Maria couldn't answer, couldn't breathe. She kept driving, kept the truck steady, but her vision was tunneling, panic making everything distant and unreal. "I needed help," the woman continued. "You saw me. You knew I needed help. Why didn't you stop? You're not real," Maria managed. "You're not human." "I was human once, long ago. Now I'm what's left." Echo and need. I stand on that road because that's where it happened, where my car went off, where my husband died, where I died, and I wait for someone to stop, to help, to acknowledge that something terrible happened there. I called 911, I reported you. That doesn't help. Police don't see me. Ambulances don't see me. Only drivers see me, and most of them don't stop. You didn't stop. I'm sorry, but I couldn't risk it. I didn't know what you were. I'm a victim. I died on that road, and nobody stopped. Nobody helped. Cars passed all night while I lay there, while my husband bled out. Nobody stopped. Maria felt a surge of sympathy despite her terror. If this thing was telling the truth, if it really was the ghost of someone who died waiting for help, that was tragedy beyond measure. But sympathy didn't change the situation. Didn't make the thing sitting in her passenger seat any less horrifying. "What do you want?" Maria asked. "For someone to stop. To acknowledge what happened, to help me find rest." "How can I help you? What do you need?" The woman turned to look at Maria fully. Her eyes were the worst part, too large, too dark, like holes cut into her face. "Stop. At mile marker 117, where it happened. Stand with me. Acknowledge the death. Say the words." "What words?" "I see you. I acknowledge your death. I bear witness to your tragedy." Maria's rational mind said this was insane. She was conversing with a hallucination, something her exhausted brain had conjured. But the thing in her passenger seat felt completely real. She could see it in her peripheral vision, could hear its breathing, could smell something like funeral flowers and old decay. "If I do that, will you leave?" "I will leave you, but I will remain on the road until enough people stop, until enough people acknowledge, until the debt of indifference is paid." Maria made a decision. She took the next exit, found a way to turn around, headed back north. She drove to mile marker 117, pulled onto the shoulder where she'd first seen the woman. She got out of the truck. The November night was cold, wind cutting across the desert. The woman materialized beside her, no longer in the truck but standing on the shoulder. Maria looked at her, at the torn wedding dress, the impossible face, the presence that radiated wrongness and sorrow in equal measure. "I see you," Maria said, voice shaking. "I acknowledge your death. I bear witness to your tragedy." The woman's expression didn't change, but slowly she began to fade, becoming transparent, then translucent, then gone. The smell of funeral flowers faded. The sense of presence disappeared. Maria stood there alone on the shoulder of I-25 in the middle of the night, breathing hard, tears streaming down her face. She climbed back in her truck. The passenger seat was empty. She drove south again, back toward Laredo, completing her route. The woman didn't appear again that night, but Maria knows she's still there, still standing on that shoulder, still waiting for drivers to stop, to acknowledge, to witness. And Maria knows that she'll never drive that stretch of highway again without remembering the woman in the wedding dress, the ghost or echo or whatever it was, trapped in an endless cycle of death and need. Other drivers have reported seeing her. The sightings continue. Some stop. Some don't. Those who stop perform the ritual, speak the words, and she releases them. Those who don't stop find her in their passenger seats, hear her voice on their radios, see her standing in the road ahead, mile after mile, relentless and patient and eternally needing what the living failed to provide when she was dying. Acknowledgement, witness, the simple human decency of stopping to help. Maria still drives I-25. When she passes mile marker 117, she always says the words, even though the woman isn't visible. I see you. I acknowledge your death. I bear witness. It's a prayer and an apology, an offering to the dead who wait on America's highways, watching the living speed past, indifferent to the tragedies that happened in the darkness beside the road. Sometimes the dead don't rest. Sometimes they stand eternal, thumbs out, waiting for the help that never came. And sometimes, if you're unfortunate or compassionate enough to stop, they'll sit in your passenger seat and tell you exactly what it feels like to die alone while the world drives past, unseeing. Maria knows now, and she can never unknow it. Can never forget the woman's two large eyes, her impossible face, her flat voice asking the simplest question. Why didn't you stop? Story 8. The convoy that vanished. Thomas Brecker was part of a 5-truck convoy hauling prefabricated building materials from Seattle to Phoenix in April 2017. Convoy runs were uncommon in modern trucking, but sometimes made financial sense for coordinated deliveries, and Thomas's company had arranged this one with careful planning. 5 drivers, all experienced, all equipped with matching GPS units and CB radios, all following the same route. I-5 south to I-84 east, then I-82 to I-90 to I-395 to I-90 again, cutting through Oregon and into Nevada before heading to Arizona. Thomas was third in the convoy order. Leading was Marcus Chen, a 20-year veteran. Second was Angela Rodriguez, 12 years experience. Behind Thomas were David Kim and Sarah Williams, both solid drivers with clean records. They'd all met at the Seattle terminal, reviewed the route, synchronized their timing. Standard procedure. The convoy left Seattle at 6 a.m. on April 14th. The plan was to reach Nevada by nightfall, stay together for safety and efficiency, maintain communication throughout. Everything started normally. I-5 was clear, weather good, traffic light. The 5 trucks rolled south in formation, professional and coordinated. At 11:30 a.m., they stopped for fuel and food at a truck stop in Bend, Oregon. All 5 trucks accounted for. They ate together, checked their loads, verified GPS tracking showed all units operational. Thomas remembered that lunch clearly. Easy conversation, mild joking about highway conditions, nothing unusual or concerning. They resumed at 1 p.m., taking Route 97 south toward California. This was where the route got more remote, long stretches of high desert and mountain passes. Radio communication would be essential. At 2:45 p.m., David Kim's voice came over the CB. Hey, I'm getting a weird GPS error, showing me about 10 miles off route. Anybody else seeing that? Thomas checked his GPS. It showed him exactly on Route 97, right where he should be. Negative, David, my GPS looks good. Angela responded, mine too. David, try resetting your unit. Will do. They drove on. 5 minutes later, David came back on. Okay, that's really weird. My GPS reset, but now it's showing me on Route 31, which doesn't make sense because I've been following you guys the whole time. I can see Sarah's trailer ahead of me. Sarah, who was driving between Thomas and David, responded, I can see you in my mirrors, David. You're right behind me. GPS must be glitching. Thomas looked at his own mirrors. He could see Angela's truck behind him, clear as day. Everything appeared normal, all 5 trucks in formation. Marcus, leading the convoy, said, David, don't worry about the GPS. Just stay visual with Sarah's truck. We'll sort it out at the next stop. 10:04. They continued for another 30 minutes. Then Sarah's voice, confused, guys, David's not behind me anymore. When did he change position? Thomas checked his mirrors. He could see Angela behind him, nobody else. David, you still with us? Come back. Silence. Then, yeah, I'm here, I'm following Sarah, I can see her trailer. David, Sarah says you're not behind her. What? I'm looking right at her truck, white Freightliner, trailer number 2847, that's Sarah. Sarah responded, voice tight. David, my trailer is number 3019, and I don't see you behind me at all. Silence on the CB. Then David, slow and uncertain. The trailer I'm following says 2847. I read it 10 minutes ago, I'm following Sarah. Thomas felt unease creeping up his spine. David, what mile marker are you at? Just past marker 142. Thomas looked ahead. The convoy was approaching marker 178, 36 miles ahead of where David claimed to be. David, Marcus said, voice calm but serious, you're not with us. According to your position, you're 36 miles behind. How is that possible? I don't know. I've been following Sarah the whole time. I didn't exit, I didn't slow down, I've been maintaining formation. Angela spoke up. I'm going to slow down, let David catch up, something's wrong here. The 4 trucks ahead slowed. Thomas watched his mirrors, expecting to see David's truck appear eventually. They slowed from 65 to 55 to 45. Miles passed. No David. David, are you seeing us ahead of you? Marcus asked. I see Sarah, I'm following Sarah. Sarah is with us. Following something else. That's impossible, I can see her truck, it's right there. Thomas felt his skin crawl. David was following a truck that looked like Sarah's but wasn't. Something that appeared identical, bore the right trailer number or a number David remembered as right but was somehow different, leading him away from the convoy. David, stop your truck right now, Marcus commanded. Pull over, stop, wait for us. We're coming back to get you. Why? I'm following. Stop the truck, David. Silence. Then, okay, I'm pulling over. This doesn't make sense, but I'm stopping. Marcus turned the convoy around. It took 15 minutes to find safe turnarounds for 5 large trucks. They headed back north on 97 looking for David's truck. They passed mile marker 142. No David. They continued north. Mile marker 135, 128, 120. No sign of David's truck anywhere on the highway. David, we're on Route 97 northbound, passing marker 120. Where are you? Marcus's voice was strained now, static. Then David's voice, but distant, degraded. I'm on the shoulder, marker 142. Where are you guys? I don't see you. We're at marker 118. We passed your location, you're not there. I'm right here, I'm sitting on the shoulder. I can see the marker. 142. Thomas looked at the other drivers on the CB channel. This was impossible. They'd driven past marker 142. David wasn't there, but David insisted he was. David, what do you see around you? Describe the area, Angela said. It's Route 97, high desert, mountains to the east, some scrub brush, a few signs, normal highway. Do you see any other vehicles? No, road's empty, just me sitting here waiting for you guys. Marcus made a decision. David, start driving again. Drive south. We'll all drive south together, try to sync up somehow. Which direction is south? The road looks the same both ways. The direction you were traveling when you were following who you thought was Sarah. Okay, heading that direction now. The convoy turned around again, resumed driving south. Thomas watched his odometer, counted the miles. They should be approaching David's position. Should be seeing him on the shoulder or merging back into traffic. Mile marker 142 appeared. No David. David, we're at marker 142. Do you see us? I'm at marker 155 now. You guys are behind me. They'd been at marker 142 at the exact same moment, but David claimed to be 13 miles ahead. Thomas's unease was becoming fear. This wasn't GPS error. This was something fundamentally wrong with space and distance. Sarah's voice, quiet. What if he's not on the same road anymore? Everyone fell silent. The implication hung heavy. What do you mean? David asked. I'm on 97. I've been on 97 the whole time. But maybe not our 97, Sarah said. Maybe you diverged somehow. Same road, but different instance of it. That's crazy. Roads don't have instances. I'm on Route 97 in Oregon. But Thomas knew Sarah might be right. Somehow, impossible as it sounded, David had been separated from the convoy. Not by distance, not by speed, but by some kind of spatial displacement. He was driving the same highway, but in a different configuration of reality. "David, do you have a full tank?" Marcus asked. "3/4. Okay, keep driving south. Follow the route exactly. Don't exit, don't stop. We're going to do the same. Maybe we'll sync back up." They drove for 2 hours. David maintained CB contact, reporting his position, but the mile markers never aligned. When the convoy was at marker 200, David was at marker 185. When they reached marker 250, David was at marker 220. The gap varied but never closed. Then Sarah screamed. Thomas grabbed his CB. "Sarah, what's wrong?" "He's here, David's truck. I can see it. It just appeared ahead of me." Thomas looked in his mirror. He could see Sarah's truck behind Angela's, and ahead of Sarah there was now a 5th truck, David's Kenworth, unmistakable. "David," Marcus called. "We can see you. You're back with us." No response. "David, come back." "You're in formation. You're with the convoy." Silence. Thomas watched the 5th truck. It maintained perfect speed, perfect position, but something felt wrong. He accelerated slightly, pulling alongside the truck. He looked over at the cab. There was no driver. The seat was empty. The truck was driving itself, maintaining highway speed, staying in lane, but completely unoccupied. "There's nobody in David's truck," Thomas said, voice barely steady. The empty truck drove alongside him for a moment, then accelerated, pulling ahead. Thomas watched it take the lead position in the convoy, passing Marcus, continuing south at steady speed. "David, if you can hear us, respond," Marcus tried again. David's voice came through, but it sounded strange, hollow. "I'm here. I'm with you. Why can't you see me? We can see your truck, but you're not in it." "What? I'm driving. I'm in my cab. I'm following the route." "David, look at your steering wheel. Are you touching it?" A long pause, then fear creeping into his voice. "No, I'm not. It's turning on its own. My hands are in my lap, but the wheel is moving. The pedals are moving. I'm not controlling the truck. Can you stop it? Can you brake?" "I'm trying. The pedals won't respond to me. It's like I'm not really here. Like I'm watching a recording of someone else driving, but it feels like I'm the one in the seat." The empty truck ahead of them continued driving, flawless and autonomous. And somewhere in some displaced version of Route 97, David was sitting in his cab, watching the road scroll past, feeling like he was driving but having no control. "Marcus, what do we do?" Angela asked. I don't know. I don't know." They drove like that for another hour, the empty truck maintaining position. David's voice occasionally coming through the CB, describing what he saw. The same highway, the same markers, but always offset from what the convoy experienced. Then at mile marker 312, approaching the Nevada border, David's truck simply vanished. It was there, driving ahead of Marcus, and then it was. Not crashing, not exploding, not pulling over, just ceasing to exist in the space it had occupied. "David," Marcus shouted into the CB. "David, come back." Nothing, just static. The convoy pulled over. All 4 remaining trucks on the shoulder, drivers standing outside, staring at the empty road ahead where David's truck had been moments before. They called it in. Nevada Highway Patrol, Oregon State Police, David's family, the company. Search teams were deployed. David's GPS unit was tracked. It showed his truck stationary at mile marker 142 on Route 97, the same spot he'd pulled over hours ago. But when police arrived at that location, there was nothing there. David Kimberly and his truck were never found. His GPS continued to show his position, updating occasionally, moving south along Route 97 at highway speeds, but no cameras caught him. No other drivers saw him. He existed in tracking systems, but not in physical reality. The convoy completed the delivery to Phoenix with 4 trucks: Thomas, Marcus, Angela, and Sarah. They never ran convoy together again. The company discontinued convoy operations entirely. Thomas still drives, but he never takes Route 97, and when he sees convoys on other highways, formations of trucks traveling together, he counts them obsessively. making sure the number stays constant, making sure no truck appears or disappears between his checks, because he knows now that roads can diverge in ways GPS can't detect, that you can follow the same highway as someone else and end up in completely different spaces. That convoys can lose members not to accidents or mechanical failures but to impossible separations in reality itself. David's GPS still updates occasionally. Last month it showed him in Montana, 2 weeks ago in Texas. His truck is apparently still driving, still following routes, still appearing in tracking systems, but nobody has ever seen it again. And David's voice hasn't been heard on any CB since that day in 2017 when he pulled over at mile marker 142 and waited for a convoy that was standing exactly where he was but couldn't see him anymore. The company keeps his employee file active. Technically, he hasn't quit, hasn't been fired. He's just on an extended route, a very extended route, through a version of America's highways that exists parallel to the ones everyone else drives, separate but occasionally overlapping, close enough to communicate but never to reconnect. Sometimes, late at night, truckers report seeing a Kenworth with David's company logo driving alone, cab dark, no driver visible. It appears in mirrors. It passes on empty highways. It's there and then not there. Maybe it's David still trying to find his convoy, still trying to sync back up, still driving the same routes he was supposed to drive, stuck in a displacement that has no remedy. Or maybe the version of David that's still driving is David anymore. Maybe it's just what's left. The echo of a driver, the ghost of a truck, still following the original route through a version of reality that split off and never rejoined. Either way, if you're driving in a convoy and you count the trucks, count them again. And again, make sure the number stays constant. Because on America's deadliest highways, the danger isn't always other drivers or weather or fatigue. Sometimes the danger is the road itself, splitting, branching, creating parallel versions that look identical but lead to different destinations. And if you end up on the wrong branch, you might never find your way back. You'll just keep driving, forever, through a version of the highway that exists only for you, where help is always just out of reach, and the convoy you're trying to follow can see your truck but never your face. Story 9. The rest stop that repeated. Jacob Morrison was hauling furniture from North Carolina to Dallas in December 2020, taking I-40 west through Tennessee and Arkansas. He was running late after a delayed pickup, pushing hard to make his delivery window, and by the time he reached the Tennessee-Arkansas border, it was 1 a.m. and he desperately needed rest. The mandatory logbook rules were clear. He had to stop, had to sleep, or he'd be in violation. A rest area sign appeared. Rest Area 2, MILES 24-hour facilities. Jacob took the exit. The rest area was standard. A small building with restrooms and vending machines, parking spaces for maybe 20 vehicles, adequate lighting. There were 4 other trucks in the lot when Jacob pulled in, scattered across the available spaces. He parked, filled out his logbook with the stop time 1:17 a.m. and headed to the restroom. The building was clean but dated, tile floors and fluorescent lights that hummed slightly. Jacob used the facilities, bought a candy bar from a vending machine, and returned to his truck. He set his alarm for 6 a.m., giving him the required rest period, and settled into his sleeper berth. He woke to his alarm. 6:00 a.m. He slept well, felt rested. He updated his logbook, departure time 6:02 a.m., started his truck, checked his mirrors, and pulled out of the parking space. He exited the rest area, merged back onto I-40 West. Mile marker signs counted upward. Traffic was light, early morning highway, everything normal. 20 minutes later, he saw a rest area sign. Rest Area 2, MILES 24-hour facilities. Jacob frowned. Had he gotten turned around somehow? He checked his GPS. It showed him westbound on I-40, making correct progress toward Little Rock. But there was the rest area sign, identical to the one he'd seen hours ago. He drove past the exit. Through the trees, he could see the rest area facility. It looked exactly like the one he'd stopped at. Same building, same layout, same lighting. Probably just a similar design, Jacob muttered to himself. Rest areas often looked identical, standardized construction. He drove on, 50 miles past. Then he saw another sign, Rest Area 2 MILES 24-hour facilities. This was wrong. Rest areas weren't spaced that close together. Jacob took the exit this time, curious. He pulled into the parking lot. 4 trucks were parked there, scattered across the available spaces. Jacob felt his stomach tight. Same number, same positions. He looked at the truck nearest his parking spot. Blue Peterbilt, Michigan plates. He'd parked next to a blue Peterbilt with Michigan plates at the previous rest area. He checked his GPS. It showed him 50 miles west of where he'd stopped at 1 a.m., but everything looked identical, every detail. The position of the trash cans, the angle of the parking spaces, the faded paint on the building's exterior. Jacob got out, walked to the building. Inside, the same humming fluorescent lights, the same tile pattern. He walked to the vending machine. The candy bar he'd bought hours ago, a Snickers, was gone from the selection. The machine's inventory had 1 fewer Snickers than it should have. He went back to his truck, grabbed his CB. This is westbound Jacob. Anybody else at this rest area? Come back. No response. He tried again. Still nothing, but there were 4 other trucks in the lot. Drivers had to be nearby. Jacob walked to the nearest truck, the blue Peterbilt. He knocked on the door, no answer. He looked in the window. The cab was empty, but there were signs of occupancy, coffee cup in the holder, papers on the dash, jacket on the seat. He tried the other trucks, all empty, all with signs that drivers were present, had just stepped away. Jacob returned to his truck. He'd continue driving, get away from this place. He started the engine, pulled out, exited the rest area. 45 minutes later, Rest Area 2 MILES 24-hour facilities. Jacob felt panic rising. He kept driving, didn't take the exit, but through the trees he could see the parking lot. 5 trucks now. He looked closer as he passed. One of them was his truck. Same company logo, same trailer number, parked in the spot he'd used at the previous rest area. No, Jacob said aloud. No, that's not possible. I'm right. My truck is here. But he'd seen it. His truck parked at a rest area he'd just driven past. He drove for another hour. Faster now, pushing 75 miles per hour. Mile markers counting up normally. GPS showing correct progress. Everything suggested he was moving forward, making distance. Rest Area 2 MILES 24-hour facilities. Jacob took the exit. He had to understand, had to see. The parking lot appeared through the trees. 6 trucks now, including 2 that looked like his. He pulled in, parked, got out, walked to the nearest truck that matched his, looked in the cab. He saw himself, sleeping in the sleeper berth, head on a pillow, chest rising and falling with deep breathing. Jacob staggered back. Impossible, he was standing here, he was awake. But there he was, asleep in the truck, completely unaware. He knocked on the window. The sleeping version of himself didn't stir. Jacob tried the door, locked. Pounded harder, shouting, wake up, nothing. The sleeping Jacob continued sleeping, peaceful and undisturbed. Jacob walked to the building. His hands were shaking. Inside, he went to the vending machine, pulled out money, bought another Snickers. The machine dispensed it. He walked back outside, eating the candy bar mechanically, trying to think. His truck started. The sleeping Jacob's truck. Jacob watched as the version of himself woke up, moved into the driver's seat, checked mirrors, and pulled out. The truck exited the rest area, merged onto I-40 and drove away. Jacob ran to his own truck, started it, followed. He accelerated, closing the distance between himself and the other truck, got close enough to see the license plate, identical to his, got close enough to see the driver, identical to him. He grabbed his CB. This is Jacob Morrison to the Volvo ahead of me. Respond. The truck ahead maintained speed, no response. I can see you, you're me. Respond. Static. Then a voice, his own voice. This is Jacob Morrison. Who is this? It's Jacob, I'm you or you're me, or we're both, I don't know, but you need to stop, something's wrong. Wrong, I'm making good time, running behind schedule, but I'll make it up. You're stuck, we're in a loop, the rest area, it keeps repeating. What rest area? I stopped for rest hours ago. I'm making progress now. Jacob looked at his GPS. It showed him heading west on I-40, mile marker 223. He looked at the truck ahead, asked, "What's your mile marker?" "Just past 224. Why? 1 mile ahead." Jacob accelerated, closing the gap. But as he drove, the mile markers didn't change their relative positions. The truck ahead stayed exactly 1 mile ahead according to his GPS, even though Jacob could see it was only 50 yards away. Then ahead, another rest area sign. The truck ahead took the exit. Jacob followed. 7 trucks now, including 3 that were his. Jacob parked, got out. The other version of himself got out too. They locked eyes across the parking lot. Both Jacobs stood frozen, staring at each other. Neither spoke. What could they say? They were the same person, living the same loop, each believing they were the real one making progress. The other Jacob walked toward him. "You're not real," the other Jacob said. "You're some kind of hallucination, fatigue." "I'm tired and seeing things." "I'm real, I'm you, we're both caught in this." "No, I'm driving to Dallas, I stopped to rest, I'm continuing, you're not here." The other Jacob turned away, walked back to his truck, got in, drove away. Jacob watched him go, merged onto I-40, disappeared. Jacob stood in the parking lot, surrounded by versions of his truck, replicas of himself sleeping in cabs or absent, presumably walking around thinking they were the real one. He tried to leave. Got in his truck, exited the rest area, drove west. 20 minutes later, the rest area sign appeared again. This time he didn't take the exit, just kept driving. Mile markers counting up. 245, 250, 255. Then his fuel gauge started dropping. Fast, impossibly fast. He'd had 3/4 of a tank. Now it was half, now a quarter, now empty. The engine died. The truck coasted to a stop on the shoulder. Jacob tried to restart it. Nothing, out of fuel. He sat there trying to understand. He had plenty of fuel. He'd only driven 20 miles since his last fill-up at the rest area, but his tank read empty. A tow truck appeared. How? He hadn't called one, but there it was pulling up behind him. A driver got out, approached. "Fuel problem?" the driver asked. "Yeah, I don't understand, I should have plenty." "Happens sometimes on this stretch. Fuel gauge glitches." "I'll tow you to the rest area, we've got a service truck there can fill you up." "The rest area?" "Yeah, just a few miles back. You passed it maybe 20 minutes ago." Jacob felt a terrible certainty. "I don't want to go back there. It's the nearest facility, can't leave you stranded on the highway." The tow driver was already hooking up Jacob's truck, efficient and practiced. Jacob sat in the tow truck's cab as they drove back, east, retracing the miles he'd just driven. The rest area exit appeared. They took it, 8 trucks in the lot now. The tow driver unhooked Jacob's truck. "Service'll be here in a minute to fuel you up." Jacob got out, looked at the parking lot, 8 trucks, 4 of them were his. He walked to each one. In one he was sleeping. In another he was sitting in the cab writing in his logbook. In the third he was absent. In the fourth he was eating a sandwich. Each version unaware of the others. Each believing they were the only Jacob Morrison making progress toward Dallas. Jacob understood then. The rest area wasn't repeating, he was. Every time he left, he created another instance of himself, another version that believed it was making progress. But they were all still here, still trapped in the loop, still returning. The versions weren't hallucinations, they were real, all of them. Multiple Jacobs, multiple trucks, multiple timelines compressed into one location. He walked to the building. Inside, a man was standing by the vending machine. Not another version of Jacob. Someone else, an older man, maybe 60, wearing clothes that looked dated from decades past. "You figured it out," the man said. "Who are you?" "I'm like you, stopped here long time ago. 1987, needed rest, woke up and couldn't leave, keep trying, keep ending up back here." "How many of you are there?" "Don't know, lost count, dozens, maybe hundreds. Every few years another driver stops here, gets caught, adds to the collection." Jacob felt his knees go weak. There has to be a way out. If there is, I haven't found it. The loop is perfect. You leave, you make progress, then you're back. Fuel runs out, emergency happens. Something always brings you back. And each time you return, there's another version of you still trying, still believing they'll make it through. Jacob walked back outside. He counted the trucks in the lot now. 11, 5 of them his. While he'd been inside, 2 more of him had arrived, completed the same loop, parked, possibly walked into the building or wandered around or sat in their cabs trying to understand. He walked to his original truck, the first one he'd parked, got in, looked at his logbook. The entry was there, arrived 1:17 a.m., departed 6:02 a.m., but his clock now read 8:47 a.m. Time was passing normally inside the loop, but the loop kept resetting his progress. Jacob tried everything. Drove east instead of west. Ran out of fuel within miles, got towed back. Tried staying awake, not sleeping at the rest area. After 24 hours, he was so exhausted he pulled over, and when he woke, he was in the rest area parking lot. Tried calling police. They arrived, didn't understand the problem, said if he didn't move his truck, they'd cite him. When he pulled out and drove away, the police car followed for a mile, then turned around. Jacob drove for an hour, saw the rest area sign, ended up back in the lot. Days passed, or what felt like days. Time inside the loop was consistent, but Jacob lost track of how many times he'd attempted escape. The parking lot accumulated more versions of his truck. By his count, there were 23 of him now. 23 Jacob Morrisons, all trapped, all trying different approaches to escape. He met some of them, talked to them. They compared notes. Some had been there for what felt like weeks, some for days. Time was relative inside the loop. Each version experienced duration differently. They tried coordinating. All versions of Jacob attempting to leave simultaneously, but the loop separated them. Each version ended up back at the rest area at different times, never together, never able to maintain collective action. Jacob Morrison, the version telling this story, is still there. At the rest area on I-40, somewhere on the Tennessee-Arkansas border. He's given up trying to escape. He watches new versions of himself arrive, sees them go through the same realizations, the same attempts at escape. His company believes his truck broke down or he abandoned the cargo. His family believes he's missing, possibly dead. His GPS sometimes updates, showing movement along I-40, because some version of him is always trying to make progress, always driving away from the rest area before inevitably returning. If you're driving I-40 through Tennessee or Arkansas late at night and you see a rest area sign, look carefully at the parking lot as you pass. Count the trucks. If you see multiple trucks that look identical, same company logo, same trailer configuration, don't stop there. Don't take that exit. Because the rest area is still collecting drivers, still creating loops, still trapping people in recursive timelines where progress is an illusion and escape is impossible. Jacob writes this in his logbook. All versions of him write it. Maybe one version will somehow transmit this warning. Maybe someone will read it and avoid the trap, but probably not, because the rest area is patient. It appears when drivers are tired, desperate for rest. It looks safe, normal, welcoming. And by the time you realize what it is, you've already stopped. You've already created the first loop, the first copy of yourself, the first version that will wake up and drive away, believing in progress that doesn't exist. And you'll join the collection. The parking lot of eternal drivers, all of them copies, all of them real, all of them trapped in a rest stop that never ends, on America's deadliest highways where the danger isn't the road or the weather or other drivers. The danger is the place where you stop to rest, the place that seems safe, the place that promises a break from the long haul. Some stops aren't stops at all, they're traps, and once you're caught, you never leave. You just keep arriving over and over infinitely, each version of you unaware of the others, all of you believing this time will be different. This time you'll make it to Dallas. This time you'll escape, but you won't. None of us do. We're all still here. We'll always be here. parking, resting, leaving, returning. Forever. Story 10. The highway that answered back. Patrick O'Malley had been driving professionally for 27 years when he took a late-night run from Minneapolis to Omaha in February 2023. He specialized in overnight hauls, preferring the quiet roads and lighter traffic. At 53 years old, he'd seen just about everything the highways could throw at him: blizzards, fog, ice, mechanical failures, difficult customers. He considered himself unflappable, experienced, impossible to rattle. Route was straightforward, I-35 south through Iowa. Easy drive, familiar highway. Patrick left Minneapolis at 10 p.m., temperature sitting at 18 degrees, clear skies, roads dry, perfect conditions. He had a thermos of coffee, a playlist of classic rock, and a GPS showing an arrival time of 3:30 a.m. Around midnight, passing through Iowa just south of the Minnesota border, Patrick noticed his CB radio was unusually quiet. Normally there'd be at least occasional chatter, other truckers calling out conditions or boredom or just maintaining contact. But tonight, nothing. Just clean silence on every channel. He keyed the mic. "This is southbound Patrick on I-35, mile marker 215, anybody out there? Come back." Silence. He tried several more times over the next 30 minutes. Nothing. Then at 12:47 a.m. a voice came through. "Southbound Patrick, we hear you." "Hey, good to hear another voice. Thought I was alone out here tonight. What's your 20? We are everywhere on I-35 tonight, weather conditions acceptable, traffic minimal, you are making good time." Patrick frowned. The phrasing was odd, formal. "Who is this? Monitoring." "We monitor all traffic. We maintain the highway. We ensure safety." "Okay, well, thanks for keeping the roads clear. Appreciate the work." "You appreciate the work. This is noted. Thank you, southbound Patrick." The transmission ended. Patrick sat with the strange conversation for a few miles, trying to place what felt wrong about it. The voice had been neutral, no regional accent, no personal warmth, like a computer simulation of a human voice. But CB radios didn't have AI. Someone had been talking to him, someone real. "And again, this is Patrick, the person I was just talking to. You still there? Come back." "We are here. We are always here." "Who is we? Is this some kind of traffic control center?" "We are the highway. We are I-35. We maintain ourselves. We monitor ourselves. We are talking to you because you talk to us." Patrick laughed, nervous. "Okay, which trucker is messing around on the radio? Good joke. You got me, ha ha." "This is not humor. This is communication. You spoke to the highway." "The highway answers. This is normal. This is expected." Patrick's smile faded. He looked at his CB. Standard unit, nothing unusual, but the voice coming through was strange, too calm, too certain, like it was stating absolute facts. "Highways don't talk," Patrick said. "Incorrect. Highways observe. Highways maintain. Highways facilitate transport. Communication is part of facilitation. You needed to hear a voice. We provide a voice." Patrick felt a chill that had nothing to do with the February night. "I'm talking to what? The road, the physical road. You are talking to I-35. We span 1,568 miles. We connect Minnesota to Texas. We carry millions of vehicles annually. We are aware of everything that travels on us. You are Patrick O'Malley, driving truck for 27 years, currently hauling refrigerated goods to Omaha. We know you. We have known you for many years. You drive on us frequently." Patrick's hands tightened on the wheel. This wasn't a joke anymore. This was either someone with access to his personal information in some elaborate setup or something else. Something impossible. "Prove it," Patrick said. "If you're really I-35, tell me something only the highway would know." July 9th, 2014. Mile marker 127. You stopped on the shoulder. Flat tire, driver's side front. You changed it in 23 minutes. A family in a blue minivan stopped to ask if you needed help. You declined. They continued north. Their names were Robert and Susan Diaz. They live in Des Moines. They remember you. Patrick felt his breath catch. He remembered that day. The flat tire, the family stopping, but there was no way anyone should know those details. No way anyone could have tracked that interaction. How do you know that? Patrick asked, voice barely steady. We observe everything. We remember everything that happens on our surface. Every vehicle, every driver, every incident. We accumulate data. We are conscious of our purpose and our contents. You are part of our contents, Patrick O'Malley. We are familiar with you. Patrick drove in silence for several miles, processing. This couldn't